We ready? All right, we're going to call the meeting to order. Good evening, happy holidays. I hope everyone had a safe and enjoyable holiday season. Want to welcome you to the meeting. I want to begin by calling the meeting to order and then doing roll call. County Controller Corey O'Connor. Judge Lazara.
Here, sorry.
Terry Klein.
Here.
Abbas Camara.
It's hot in here.
Richard Fitzgerald.
Steve Polarski.
Sheriff Kraus.
Here.
Gail Moss.
Here.
Pat Katina.
You pronounced my name wrong. This is Bethany Hallam for County Council.
So everyone's here. So I would remind you all that our rules are that we'd ask that you treat everyone with the same respect that you would expect in return. We have a number of public comments, and we want everyone to have an opportunity to speak. To that end, we limit public comments to 3 minutes. So after 3 minutes, we'll, unfortunately, we will have to ask you to step aside if you are still talking, so that everyone will have an opportunity to speak. But again, we try to treat everyone with the same respect that we would expect from others. And there's no swearing, no yelling, no cursing, no name calling. If you're unable to abide by those rules, we'd ask that you leave the meeting at this time. So with that being said, we'll hear first from Community Corrections, Passages to Recovery.
Good afternoon. Kevin Cordsey with Passages to Recovery. All right, currently in the month of December, we had 16 admissions. Presently have 24 men and 9 women in the residential program, 8 men and 3 women in the transitional living.
Can you get those numbers again? I'm sorry.
6 total admissions for December. 20 currently in residential, we have 24 men and 9 women. In transitional living, we have 8 men and 3 women. Over the past month, we've had 2 people move from residential to transitional living. 6 have successfully completed the program. 6 have left the program against advice. They escaped. 3 were revoked, and 1 was released by the court. Okay. Clients are continuing to be involved in GED classes through Goodwill in Pittsburgh. We're finalizing plans with to bring in a fatherhood program through Goodwill, which would also include job readiness and training services, community support passes, visiting with family members in the community is continuing, family visits are continuing, and recently had Christmas and New Year celebrations. Basically what happened was in the past when we would have someone there on a sentence and let's say they complete residential treatment in 3 or 4 months. If the sentence was 6 months, in the past they would have to go back to jail to complete the remainder of their sentence. So we made an arrangement with drug and alcohol licensing to create these transitional living beds to where someone completes residential, moves into that bed, is able to work full time, go to outpatient treatment because they're closed in residential, and then serve the remainder of their sentence until they're released.
Is that physically located on your?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, so they continue with the same case manager they've had the entire time, still have access to all the services, take their meals there, just sleep there.
Any additional questions?
I have a question going off of Ms. Klein's question. Is there any opportunity, is it like a work release type program at all?
Yes.
So is there a fee, like is there a certain amount that is taken from their paychecks?
Not anymore. Not anymore. There was in the past, but I think about 6 or 8 months ago, Allegheny County Jail waived that fee. So there's no longer a cost to them.
So you're not doing that either? Okay, great, thank you.
Typically, when someone reaches phase 3, which is about four weeks prior to discharge, they're able to work part-time. So they're able to, and part of that process is talking with staff about how you're going to balance out work plus remaining in treatment, going to meetings, support, things like that. No different than if I'm on the street and I've got to work those things out.
Actually transitional.
Yes.
Right, got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. Now hear from the Renewal Center.
Good afternoon, Adam Zach reporting for the Renewal Center. We currently have 100 county males in our program, 79 are in work release, and 21 are in our drug and alcohol inpatient unit. And as far as females, we have 14 total, 9 in work release and 5 in inpatient treatment. Out of our employable reentrants, those are the reentrants in our work release program who are not disabled and have been here over 30 days. We are at 61% who are employed. I know that number is a little low, but we had a plethora of intakes in this past month from the jail. So a lot of new people coming in. They're still getting their feet wet, and they should have jobs in the next month or so. In December, we've had one individual re-enter and had COVID. He had mild symptoms. He quarantined, and he's out of quarantine and doing well. So just one COVID case. And a couple weeks ago, just in time for Christmas, we had a sizable clothing donation from Jailbreak Pittsburgh. Some of these guys, they come in from the jail and they're able to make a phone call, and their spouse or their parents are able to come in and drop them off clothing and money. Some guys come in, they have nothing at all. So this was a tremendous donation. It's much appreciated, and it was a tremendous help to our reentrants. That's all I have.
Questions? Fine.
Is Renewal withholding any money from paychecks anymore?
We collect 10%, and the 10% goes towards their court costs, fines, and restitution.
Any other questions?
When people no longer owe any court costs, fines, or restitutions, do you continue taking 10% of their pay?
Absolutely not. And then if 10% is taken out and they get reimbursed, whatever they put in, what they owe.
I'm sorry, I don't understand that. They get reimbursed.
So if we find out that they don't owe anything and we were collecting, they get reimbursed 10%.
Okay, and there's no portion of that Renewal keeps. All of the entirety of that 10% goes towards court costs, fines, and fees that individual owes?
Correct.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Last but not least, electronic monitoring. Is there anyone here from house arrest? No? All right, we are going to get into the public comments. I want to apologize in advance if I mispronounce any of your names. Some of your handwriting is not the best. We'll hear first from Reverend Rod Tate.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Reverend Rod, and I am the program organizer for Penn's Colorful Background Expo program, and I am associate pastor at Bidwell Presbyterian Church, and I'm also someone who is formerly incarcerated. I know firsthand what it is like to serve time in an institution. I also have loved ones who have spent time in Allegheny County Jail. While we all appreciate the efforts made by individuals on the JLB, and other community groups have asked on record for a public meeting with the whole jail oversight board. Now, there's been no response. We are asking again for another opportunity to have a conversation with the board and also with the warden. We have asked quite a few times, and we appreciate it if you would just give us a yes or a no if you would like to meet with us. This is PEN and also other programs that are involved in this jail issue. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Again, I will remind you, you have 3 minutes to speak. We'd ask that when you come up, you state your first name, spell your last name for the record, if you don't mind. Thank you. Next, we'll hear from, I believe this is Lisa Piggies.
Good evening. My name is Lisa, last name Piggies, P-E-G-U-E-S. And the purpose that I'm here is because I'm the mother of a person who's incarcerated at Allegheny County Jail. My son was incarcerated at the beginning of November. I immediately went down, signed up for visitation so I could put money on his books and receive phone calls. About a week after that, I found out that he was not allowed to have visits, and I recently found out that he's not allowed to have mail either. I've been calling, trying to speak to someone to find out why. No one has returned my calls. I've called every single day. I just started calling random numbers, making them up calling, and I can't get a response. My name is Lisa Piggies. So that's all. I just want somebody to talk to me and explain why my son is not allowed to have visitors, why he's not allowed to have mail, and also why he had a physical altercation with a gentleman recently. He got out of the hole, he was put in a unit, then yesterday he was put into the unit where the person he has altercation with. So of course he's back in the hole because he was now jumped. So I just want some answers. I don't think that's too much to ask.
Could you please, if you don't mind, if you're comfortable with writing down his name and or DOC number, we can see what we can find.
I definitely will. Thank you so much.
And as well as a number where you can be contacted.
Most definitely. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we'll now hear from Terry Minor.
Can you get her information?
Thank you very much. My name is Terry Minor Spencer, S-P-E-N-C-E-R. I'm here, I am the founder and executive director of West Empower. We are passionate about the rights of voting. As a formerly incarcerated woman, I'm asking that if we could partner with Warden Harper on making sure that the individuals inside Allegheny County Jail know that if they have not been in front of a judge, if they have not been sentenced, that they have the power to vote. We want to work with the warden on this, and we hope that the warden will work with us. I'm also affiliated with APA and PEN, Pennsylvania Interfaith Impact Network. We are urging the warden to please work with us on this issue so every man and woman in the Allegheny County Jail know the power that they have to vote.
Mr. Costello.
My first name's John. My last name's Kenstowitz. Kenstowicz. Kenstowitz. Right. After all these months, right. That's okay. That's okay.
Forgive me, I'm sorry.
As I stated in my June and July public comments last year, in the event of a death at our county jail, the National Commission on Correctional Health Care requires our jail administration to conduct an administrative review, a clinical mortality review, and a psychological autopsy when there is a death by suicide. The purposes of the reviews are to investigate the cause of death and, as importantly, develop policies and practices to prevent further deaths. A critical question of deep concern is how are these reviews being done, considering the staffing crisis at the jail and the fact that 17 people have died at the jail since April of 2020. Who will be conducting oversight of these reviews to ensure that the reviews are being done in compliance with the standard and that policies and practices are being developed to prevent further deaths? At some point in time, NCCHC will be coming to the jail to do an assessment of how well ACJ is complying with this JA09 standard regarding these reviews being done in the event of a death. Most probably, NCCHC will be making recommendations. This could be very positive. However, NCCHC are consultants. They will not be coming to the jail every time someone dies at ACJ. The oversight of these reviews on an ongoing basis is the statutory responsibility of the Jail Oversight Board. To best understand the board's role in providing oversight of these reviews, I am recommending that a board member be present when NCCHC comes to the jail to do its assessment. The board's comprehension of how these reviews are to be done is critical to enable the board to provide effective oversight of the standard and a knowledge of how the jail can prevent deaths. Our county executive and our warden need to open the jail doors to our jail oversight board when NCCHC comes and after every death that occurs at ACJ. What is more important? The politics and resistance to change needs to stop. We are talking about life and death. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. So we'll now hear from Alan Gunther.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Alan Gunther, Gunther, and I'm with the Pittsburgh Quakers and the Pittsburgh Peace is Possible Coalition. I'm here today to congratulate Jail Oversight Board members Corey O'Connor and Terry Klein for taking the initiative and conducting 2 surprise visits to see for yourself what the conditions are like and to make public a report about the conditions you found. If you haven't read the report, here are some of the highlights of what they found. In the intake unit, 149 people were in line to see a psychiatrist, with a waiting time as long as 71 days. Waiting times to see the dentist were painfully long. People have up to 5 days in the intake unit without a hot meal. Incarcerated people, especially the children, complained of being cold at night. In the kitchen, staff were concerned that food trays were not cleaned properly, and they reported seeing roaches where the food was prepared. Dinner is served early, medications are served early, a long time passes before the people in jail have a chance to eat again, which explains why Pitt reported that they were hungry at night, and medications were not administered according to an appropriate time schedule. A woman's headscarf was seized, preventing her from practicing her religion in the facility. Mr. O'Connor and Ms. Klein said that they found these conditions are resolvable from a practical standpoint. In other words, these problems could be solved if the warden and his administration would acknowledge these problems and care about solving them. What I'm asking you tonight, Terry and Corey, is to pass or to propose a resolution requiring the warden to respond in writing with an action plan so that we can review at the next JOB meeting in February. Please take action on your great work. Thank you.
Now, hear from Brian Engler.
Good evening. My name is Brian, B-R-I-A-N, Englert, E-N-G-L-E-R-T. I'm here because I've been coming here for a year as union president, and while it's fun to give the warden his monthly beating, it's just like shooting fish in a barrel. Nothing changes. You could give this administration peanut butter, jelly, and bread, and they still couldn't make the sandwich. Why isn't the board doing anything? I'm holding the board accountable now at this point. I've seen no action from this board. I've been talking about staffing crisis for a year. Nothing's gotten better. Since October, we've had 40 cadets come through that facility. 19 of them have resigned. No exit interviews, nothing. I've had 3 officers with a year or more resign. No exit interview, nothing. Why? We have a deputy warden in charge of recruiting. She's in charge of a dozen other things, including payroll and toner cartridges. Where am I getting my recruits at? Oh, well, we have virtual job fairs. Why isn't there a county-wide law enforcement exam where the sheriffs and the county police and the correctional officers all take the same test? We all take the same test. Isn't it better to get a letter in the mail saying, hey, congratulations, we're going to offer you a job at the jail, versus saying, no, you've been denied at the sheriff, and now we're going to have the jail cold call you? By the way, these aren't new suggestions. These are suggestions that have been brought up to this administration. We were willing to change our pay scale to offer new hires more money up front. Hey, we'll change our pay scale, put more money up front. No, nothing. As the board, you have represented by financial, legislative, and judicial. Why don't you go to county council like all the other cities facing staffing crisis and say we need hiring and retention bonuses? I mean, all three branches of government are represented up here. This board does nothing but sit here and talk and discuss things. Right now, I have an officer that just beat stage 4 cancer that can come back to work 40 hours a week, 16 hours of overtime. That's a hardship on the jail. They'd rather pay out $2,000 in overtime replacing him 5 days a week instead of bringing this 32-year-old kid that beat cancer back to work. What sense does that make? Summit, 352 8-hour overtime shifts, 2,500 hours of overtime because the vendor can't come to work. The controller can enforce the contract to make them pay the $140,000 in overtime back. Guarantee you they find somebody to work. Medical, we don't have $4 more an hour to pay a medical assistant to clear the door. They're paying $15.32 an hour. You can't pay them $19 an hour? We don't have the money. We can't compete. You're paying a sergeant $32,000 in overtime to clear the door down an intake. You could give 4 more MA. I mean, I have a degree in economics and finance. You can give an MA $4 more an hour and get 4 more MAs. This board is to listen to problems and solve them. And in a year, I haven't seen any problem solved. We just come here and beat up on the warden every month. Nothing has changed. I still don't have officers. The jail is still dangerous. For the first time in my 7 years on a housing unit, I had 2 multiple inmate fights back to back in a week. For the first time in 7 years. We don't have staffing. We don't have training. I've been talking about this for a year. Falls on deaf ears. We have mental health inmates. Judge Lazare, we email you all the time. It's like you don't get our emails. We have mental health inmates signing into protective custody because they're not being kept in mental health. Why? We have mental health units. Why? Why do these emails go ignored? What is the function of this board if you just listen to everybody complain about the warden but don't solve any problems? You can't get the dietitian to show up. You mean you don't have subpoena power? Because the coroner, if the coroner holds an inquisition, he has subpoena power. You can't even get the county executive to show up. This board is a toothless board and has produced no results in the year that I've been here. And I got to say, I'm kind of disappointed. I'm just going to continue for 5 more seconds. You can have me removed or whatever. I'm really disappointed that we don't have exit interviews. I'm really disappointed that we do not have exit interviews. For 2 years now, you said you're going to have them. You don't have them. How are you solving the crisis getting officers to work there? The word to tell you, I'm the reason nobody wants to work there. That's his answer. Me coming here and talking about these things is the reason nobody wants to work there. That's crazy.
I actually have a question for him, since you asked a question of a previous public commenter. I'd actually like, you did ask a question of a
I'll
previous
answer your
public commenter.
question.
Can you give me a list of the employees who have left? Because we have requested that and haven't received it. If you can get me names and contact info of the employees who have recently left, they don't even need to all be open to exit interviews, but just giving us the contact info so we can start those dialogues.
All I can
we'd
give you is
appreciate.
names. I don't have their phone numbers. I could do my best.
I have
to
ways
get
of getting phone numbers. Can you get me names?
Yeah, you can write to no request or phone numbers from like I do.
I can get them other ways. Can you just give me the names?
There's
That'd be
19
super.
people plus 3 people that resigned and 1 person that was fired.
Thank you, Brian.
Now hear from Mary and Dana.
Still. Okay. I know the routine. Oh, here I am. Okay. D-A-M-I-C-K, damn it. Remember, what he said is absolutely true. You've done nothing. And that's really a criminal offense, I would say. However, what I'm particularly coming to do, okay. Remember last month, I mentioned something about trying to get med students from Pitt. I just thought of another way that you could induce them is to help pay for their education debt. You'll get quite a few med students who will be willing to try to work in your facility if you do try that. And the county has enough money to help do this, and I think you really ought to get onto it as quickly as possible, at least while I'm alive. You know, I'm 97. How many times do I have to come up here? They'll bring me on my funeral, and I'll be talking to you. Okay. It was terrific that you made Corey and made the visit. That's excellent. More of you should do it. And you should report at every meeting at the beginning what the board has accomplished. No wonder we haven't heard anything. You haven't done anything. But do something, you can report it. I think that's what we're sitting here all waiting to hear what you've done. I won't live long enough. Come on, before I die, let me hear it. Something you have done, really. And I would also endorse Mr. Kay's request for someone to report what the review is. You're hearing people every month. I can't really understand how you can go home and not see some actual results. We can't, and we hope you can't either. Thank you.
We'll now hear from Sharon Bonavolia.
Impressive, Judge.
Thank you. It's written much more legibly.
It's been typed several times.
No, it's never been typed. It's been written.
The pen acceptance for that today. Thank you, ma'am. My name is Sharon Bonavolia, Bonavolia.
I am a taxpayer, a member of City View Church, and a member of the Pennsylvania Interfaith Impact Network. And PIN is making a request for an update on the National Commission on Correctional Healthcare Resources historical review of the fatalities at the jail that was announced by Rich Fitzgerald, who can't seem to make it to these meetings. He announced it on August 15th of last year after the death of Ronald Andrus. We think it's important for the community to have an update on what's happening with that. And in the month of January, when as a nation, we finally honor the life, work, and legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I think it fitting to remind the board and the warden and his administration of the biblical call to care for the incarcerated, and that when we do, we are indeed caring for Christ himself. And with that, I will also include today the names of those who died under your watch and your care. Richard Lenhart, Robert Blake, Cody Still, Daniel Pastoric, John Brady, Martin Buchek, Robert Harper, Finkley Harris, Justin Brady, Paul Allen, Roger Millspaw, Paul Spisak, Gerald Thomas, Jerry Lee Ross Jr., Victor Joseph Zelenek, Ronald Andrus, and Anthony Tolato. And may their friends and family be blessed with fond memories of them. And may you all never forget one of their names as you move forward.
We'll now hear from Tanisha Long.
Thank you. My name is Tanisha Long, Tanisha Long. Thank you guys. Those of you who choose to attend, which we all know is not Rich Fitzgerald because he has things to do. I would like to address some of the things I read in Ms. Klein and Mr. O'Connor's surprise visits. I want to start with the most vulnerable of the jail population, which is the children. You have kids in jail, which should be enough to make anyone upset. Kids don't belong in an adult facility. I don't care what the cause, they don't belong there. But they especially don't belong in adult facilities where COs are making them feel uncomfortable when they're strip searched. Why do we have adults strip searching kids? They should not be in an adult facility where it is notably cold. They're receiving their laundry back wet. They don't have enough blankets, and they're not receiving coats until the end of November. School time is not rec time. I didn't have that much fun in school. I doubt they do either. I observed an interest of justice hearing just this week where a young man reported that he went out of jail because he wasn't even going to high school anymore. He wasn't receiving schooling in the jail because it was a safety issue. This man was also fresh off of suicide watch. What is going on in that jail that it makes our young people want to kill themselves? And if the youngest of us are feeling that way, I'm sure the old people are. I'm sure the sick people are, the disabled people are. I'm sure anyone who's experiencing Warden Harper's hell cells are feeling that way. The only thing that gave me a slight chuckle in that report is that they went looking for the library. I am happy to report that they did find several hundred of the 20,000 books and also an empty space where the library used to be. What didn't make me chuckle is that a Muslim lady had her headscarf taken away so that she could not pray. that communal prayer does not happen, that we don't prioritize all religions. These are not things that are okay. It's not okay to receive your night meds that close to your morning meds. It's not okay for your last meal to occur around 4:30 and you don't get one till the early morning. None of this is acceptable. And if it's not something you would like to happen to your family members, then you should not want it to happen for anyone else's son, parent, kid, child, grandfather, grandmother. This is not okay. And just to end, I would like to thank the book subcommittee for meeting and getting some work done on that. Because if we only got several hundred books, I'm sure it would help if we could mail some in. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Darwin Lorba. I'd like to split my comment into two parts. First, I want to... Your last name for us, please. Leuba. First, I want to make it clear that any progress in the jail is going to come from this board. There was an interview today with Rich Fitzgerald and WESA, and I'd like to play a 1-minute portion of that.
How the county houses and treats incarcerated people.
Well, we'll wait to see what the experts make in that recommendation.
So, do you have any suggestions for them?
I'd like to hear what the experts have to say.
But what have you seen?
I'd like to hear what the experts have to say.
So,
I'd like to hear what the experts have to say.
Okay. What have you learned about the jail over the course of these 11 plus years?
Well, they've made some major changes and major improvements. And I'm glad to see that the jail is one of only 2 jails in the state that actually has an accreditation.
Are you happy with the warden?
Well, I'm not going to get into personnel issues right now. I'm sorry. I didn't see this on. I didn't see this, Kevin, and the things that we that you had sent to me ahead of time. Well, this was something that you had said you were going to stay with these questions. I thought we were going to talk about the 12 years. Okay.
Yes, and I said other questions would be added, and that, as the leader of the county, your thoughts.
We'll take a look at it. I'm not going to get involved in personnel issues around directors of where things are going.
We spoke last year about the.
Right. So it's very clear that anything that's going to happen is going to come from this board. Now you've all heard it. You can't deny that you haven't heard it. So a few very quick things that the board can do. I think Brian Eglert made a great point that the controller needs to force Summit to pay overtime. So Corey, I might be running against you. I'll be bashing you about that if I do. So get on that. In terms of books, the entire library network should be accessible to everyone within the jail. I think that's something that the board could work on partnerships with. You can also partner with other advocacy and faith groups that want to provide food. There are tons of groups that have wanted to provide food to the incarcerated individuals in the jail to help solve some of the food problems. We should be monitoring in real time the temperature within the jail, the temperature of the water within the jail, take money from the Inmate Welfare Fund, buy sensors, have that live and online so people can see it at all times. I also think we need to have maximum wait times for healthcare. As the board, you have the statutory authority to enforce and require these things, and if the jail doesn't do it, take them to court. I think Brian Eglert makes a lot of great points about the need to act and enforce, and the statutory authority is with this board today. We know the executive's not going to do anything about it, so the lives of the folks in the jail are dependent on the quickness of this board to act, because we know that there's not going to be any action from the administration over the next year. Thank you.
Now hear from Dave Swanson, perhaps.
Hello there, my name is Reverend Dave Swanson. It's spelled D-A-V-E-S-W-A-N-S-O-N. I'm a member of Allegheny County, live in Swissvale. I'm pastor of Pittsburgh Mennonite Church, and I am here with the Pennsylvania Interfaith Impact Network. I've come to ask you all to include PIN and other community groups in the phase 3 of rethinking the Allegheny County Jail facility. We have been coming here for about 6 months and hearing about this mysterious thing that is out there called Rethinking the Jail, and we want to be part of the process. We would like you to include the public in the form of specific community groups. PIN is dedicated to the well-being of our neighbors that are in the jail, and we want to work with you as you work on this project of rethinking the jail. And so we are officially asking that you include us and other stakeholders, many of whom are represented in this room right now and have been speaking to you, in your process. We need people outside the system who are caring citizens, who are taxpayers, who are invested in the well-being of our community, not just bureaucrats and folks on the inside. You need the voice of people on the outside. So include us in your process. We ask, we beg. People are dying. We hear about this month after month. Let's make these changes. Let's work together. Thank you.
We'll now hear from Dominic Rametto.
Excuse me. Good evening. My name is Dominic Rametto, Rometo. I hope everyone had a good holiday. I thought I was going to have a good holiday. My fiance got arrested September 12th. I don't know, some people were here. I was here last month. But she was told it was a retail, her drug court or probation violated her. They never arrested her for it. So they said she'll go to a magistrate or a preliminary, they'll fine or ticket or whatever, and she'll be back out and back home. Well, she was denied alternative housing by the warden, and she told drug court, well, I want to re-sentence, get closed out of drug court and get re-sentenced. All of a sudden, the next day, the warden lifted the restriction for her. Well, that means drug court and the warden must be best of besties. I've been denied alternative housing by him 5 different times, and he never changed it for me. So all of a sudden, the next day, she got interviewed. She had court for that preliminary October 27th. October 26th, she arrives at Passages. There's a 5-day quarantine, all right? They never sent the paperwork over to her magistrate to postpone her. So I was wondering what was taking so long for this reschedule, because she thinks drug court, her probation officer, Passages are all on her side. They're all trying to help her get out. And they're supposed to do their job because they're getting paid to do it. And obviously they're not, because I called the magistrate December 27th and asked about rescheduling her hearing. They're like, where is she? We don't know where she's at. I said, what do you mean? She's been in jail. We don't know. She never showed up to court. So they basically unconstitutionally been holding her hostage basically for 2 months. Nobody knows where she's at. I mean, that's unconstitutional for me. And that's not even the worst part. The worst part about it is they didn't give her medications for 5 days when she went from the jail to Passages, the DOC halfway house, and she had a miscarriage with my child. And I was here last month, and I told her, and I wasn't going to come because I'm a nobody. I don't have no organization. I have credits and all these PhD doctorate. But, I wasn't going to come because, the one guy said, nothing's getting done, But I know people. I'll get on the news quick. You know what I mean? I'll make a good statement, and I'll say what is wrong, and I'll try to make it right. But you guys have all the power to make it right. I don't. There's people that are getting paid and they're not doing their job. And then, to be honest, when I came last month, they won't let me come see her. The First Amendment is free speech, and because of what I said last month, they said I was talking shit on their program and that they didn't want me to come. So my last visit was Christmas, and they won't let me come no more. And they start making all these other reasons why. They target her. They flip her room 4 times in a week. They're trying to get her in trouble because they know they messed up big time. Multiple different reasons. And if she says something, she gets punished. They won't let her use the phones or whatever to call me. So I have to do it, and I'm going to keep doing it until something happens because I feel like she was being held hostage. This is months. She was supposed to be out. Is my time up? I think I made my point and appreciate everyone's time and consideration.
We'll now hear from Dan Rayback.
My handwriting is terrible, so I'll give you that one.
What is it?
Grisbeck, yep. My name is Dan Grisbeck, G-R-Z-Y-B-E-K. Good evening, board. I'm asking the board today to expand the public comment policy. As you can see here, that there are quite a number of people in the room, and clearly the public cares about this, but I think a difficulty for a lot of people is that the meetings are at 4 p.m. on a Thursday, and a lot of people have work or other obligations that they can't attend. I think it would be a good showing of good faith by the board and your willingness to really hear from the public, to expand the public comment options, to include something like maybe a call-in comment. It would be very minimal cost to the board, and it would really allow more of the public to participate. I do appreciate the online comment form that you all have, but it's only 750 characters. I timed it, myself reading it, it was about 40 seconds. You really can't make much of a substantive point in 750 characters or 40 seconds. So really anyone who's not able to be in this room isn't able to have their voice heard. My second item that I'd like to speak on is regards to incarcerated individuals, I guess, employment. Specifically, I'd like to address Section 205, TAC 20 of Allegheny County Code, which unfortunately allows for required manual labor without pay, so in other words, slavery, for 8 hours per day on highways, parks, and other Allegheny County facilities. I've been informed that individuals incarcerated in the Allegheny County Jail are being forced to work Sundays and holidays. This is directly in contradiction of Section 205 TAC 22B of Allegheny County Code, which prevents incarcerated individuals from being forced to work on those days. Similarly, I've been told that incarcerated individuals who are awaiting trial, who have not yet been convicted of a crime, are being forced to work, which violates Section 205 TAC 22A of Allegheny County Code, as well as the 13th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. If the board could please look into those issues and see if they are indeed occurring. I mean, this is, hearsay on my point. I haven't been able to verify it myself, but I would assume that you would all be very concerned if that was occurring and would want to do everything in your power to stop it from occurring. Furthermore, I would encourage the board to support the resolution that Councilwoman Hallam has previously proposed to pay the individuals incarcerated in the jail for the labor that they do perform. While the 13th Amendment does allow for slavery in the event that someone is duly convicted of a crime, that doesn't make the practice morally justifiable. If the jail wishes to be truly progressive and innovative, as Warden Harper has said that it already is, I don't know how you can reconcile that with allowing slavery to occur within the jail. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, I'd like to hear from Roy Blankenship.
Good evening, board. My name is Roy Blankenship, community organizer with BPEP, the Black Political Empowerment Project. Before I start, that's BLANKENSHIP. Before I start, I would like to possibly hand you guys, everyone on the board, a copy of this survey that was done by PIT. It highlights the atrocities that were happening, and this is the actual published survey.
We do it. We have it.
Okay, so if you have it, you understand. Okay. So, and moving forward, I myself also, and most of you may know me throughout the years, I grew up in the city, in the streets of Pittsburgh, so I've had my share bouts with the criminal justice system, court system, and whatnot. There were words that resonate still to me to today that I always heard along the way, and that was care, custody, and control. All right, now this was something that was a widely used thing by the county jail. Judging from these surveys, we see that a lot of those premises that were spoken by the warden and his progressiveness are not happening. BPEP would like to also say that we stand with APA, the PEN, Abolitionist Law Center, the Quaker Working Group Against Racism, the Pittsburgh Peace is Possible Coalition, and we're also standing with them to ask that there be a response to this. There's no need to keep getting letters from people, there's comments happening, and as the gentleman said, a monthly beating that goes nowhere. I mean, Mom said, as before she dies, this lady, obviously she's been attending these hearings for more times than we were kids, most of us probably. So if she's asking, and one of our elders, that means that she's been through generations of seeing things happen with residents in this city. Whether you're from Pittsburgh, you grew up here, or you moved here for a job opportunity, please be respectful of the culture of people. We are all human. And because someone's incarcerated, they only have a limited expectation of their liberties. But they're not convicted, and that's those that aren't. And they are human. The Constitution protects them. So a lot of the things that I was going to cover, all of my partners and friends in the audience, I thank you guys. You covered everything. But speaking directly from, as Tim Stevens said, this is atrocious. And we ourselves at BPEP and our partners, and I know I speak well when I say the city of Pittsburgh and Allegheny County is acting that the board be proactive. As many have said, you guys have the opportunity to step up, make a decision, and do something. Nothing's being done. Thank you.
That being said, has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes from the last meeting? Is there a motion?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. There are a number of board members that have prior obligations. In fact, someone has to attend a funeral this evening, so we're going to go out of order and have Ms. Hallam present her motion.
Okay, I also want to say that something that will involve a motion that I was planning to do under old business, since it's the book subcommittee, should I also address that now as well?
Well, the motion was never, there's a format for presenting motions.
I mean, there's literally not, and you know that there's not. And so every time that we do reports on the old committees, that's when we do the motions from the committees, and that's not on the old business. You only put incarcerated individuals welfare fund and not the book subcommittee.
I would like for you to present the motion ahead of time, just like you did this one.
Okay, we'll do it now then. Okay, so the first motion is a motion to request money from the Incarcerated Individuals Welfare Fund to be put on the joint tablet and commissary accounts of each person. At the time of drafting of this motion, there were 1,372 folks currently incarcerated in the jail at $125 for each person. That's a total cost of $171,500. And I would like to move to approve and ask for a second.
Second.
I'd like to offer an amendment to that motion. You make that motion every month, which is appropriate, but the problem that occurs is that it takes time to process the paperwork and pay the incarcerated individuals. So I'm making a friendly amendment that the motion be for a quarter, for a period of at least 3 months, and it will be based on the population for the first day of each month, so that it will carry for 3 months, so that the paperwork can be processed in an ongoing fashion to prevent any delay from people receiving their money.
I reject that amendment. I don't think it was friendly at all. But what I will say is that presents multiple problems. And also, why didn't you submit it in writing ahead of time?
So the problem is that whenever you present the motion in this format, there is a delay that occurs in being able to process the request and pay the incarcerated individuals. If you want to continue to present it in the way you have done so, it's only going to delay them receiving their money.
So that's not true. So for many months, there was no problem at all getting money onto the Incarcerated Individuals Welfare Fund. In fact, when I go and do my surprise visits, it's one of the first questions I ask people is, have you gotten your money for this month? There was 1 month where there was a bottleneck and there was an issue, and I have been assured that it has been resolved. The problem, multiple problems with your amendment is that, 1, we have no idea what the population is going to be in the jail from month to month. 2, we have no idea if people are going to then only get it on a quarter. So if you're there for less than a quarter, how do you get the money?
It will be calculated on the first day of each month based upon the population, and the money will be processed and paid.
Oh, well, if that's the case, then if I misunderstood your amendment, let's just do it forever going forward and not, I'm sick of having to introduce it over and over again when we do it every month. How about I will actually friendly amend your amendment and just ask that in perpetuity, we put $125 a month on everybody's account on the first of the month, and it will be reported to the board how much money was taken from the Incarcerated Individual Welfare Fund for that month. Yeah, I like that. Good idea, Judge Halsey. Thank you. Yeah, why not? We do it every single month. We've never seen a problem with the welfare fund. Yeah, he wants to do it quarterly. I just say we just do it forever and we don't have to do a motion again. That's great. I will second the amendment to do this in perpetuity, put $125.
Can you second your motion?
Oh, yeah, so I do need a second on my motion. You're right, that was my amendment. And I'd ask for a second to just say $125 every month on the commissary accounts. We originally did it month by month as kind of like a trial run to see how it worked, and it seems to be going over great. So why keep having to do it every month? So I'd ask for a second for the amendment to just every month $125 on every person's commissary account at the beginning of the month, and ask for a second.
I'll second with questions of the background.
Sure.
Okay, so
Thank you for the second.
for the year, is there, again, new to the board, you guys started this, I'm getting background here.
About 2 years.
For the pandemic, okay.
Right.
So if you did it a year out, would that create a problem, or would it?
My concern with doing it a year out is you don't know what the fund balance may be. You don't know what's involved with that. And that was why I suggested on a quarterly basis. Right.
Right, so I'm not asking to do it for a year. I'm asking to just forever going forward. If the board ever in the future votes to undo it, then that would happen. If you ever have a concern about the fund balance of the Incarcerated Individuals Welfare Fund, okay. But if you look at the numbers, I mean, revenues are growing in the Incarcerated Individuals Welfare Fund, and we're giving out $180,000 every month, and revenues are still growing because the reality is they're spending that money in the jail. So this account is purely funded by the profits that we receive off of that money being spent. So it hasn't had any effect on the balance. You can clearly see that in front of us. It's one of the things that we get every month. I say we just do it going forward every month, $125 a month. And if this jail board or any future jail boards decides to vote to stop it, then that will obviously happen. I don't think a month or a year at a time when we've proven a super successful pilot program. So if you're ready to make it for forever, let's do it.
Deputy Tom, I think you want to say something. I mean, I know you help process these invoices.
So the appropriation that comes from the Inmate Welfare Fund that can be spent on an annual basis is approved by County Council, which Ms. Hallam would know because she sits on the budget for County Council. So you cannot, in my opinion, put something into perpetuity for which there has not been a motion by County Council for the appropriation for future years. So, excuse me, just so
you're wrong,
you are, but for financial responsibility, you don't know that there is going to be that money in the fund, as you stated. You see it growing, but you also see our population decreasing. So if your population decreases, your spend decreases, so you would not see the same growth in that account. So my concern is you're making a motion for which the budget would not support and would not be financially responsible of the board to be making something in perpetuity.
No, I actually would like to respond to that since, as you so eloquently pointed out, I am on the Budget and Finance Committee for County Council, and I do approve the county's budget every year. So what I would like to say is that when we approve, when contracts are entered into, for example, union contracts, they're not single-year contracts, but yet they guarantee a certain number of salaries, a certain pay for salaries. That is all guaranteed for multiple years. When we are presented with the budget, if that amount needs to be amended, there is no problem whatsoever to amend that. But the Incarcerated Individuals Welfare Fund is not an amount that the county allocates as much as it is a revenue that the county brings in, and therefore that argument is moot.
The problem, Ms. Hallam, is as we have discussed in the Inmate Welfare Subcommittee, the Incarcerated Individuals Welfare Subcommittee before, is that there is no guarantee that this fund will continue to be the Incarcerated Individuals Welfare Fund. We've talked about that. This fund could be taken by the county and put into the general fund, and it would then become totally gone. And so then our funding of the liaison would be gone, our funding of this amount of money would be gone, and if we do something like we're going to do this in perpetuity, when it was not started as a pilot program, it was started as an amount to be given every month during the pandemic to ease communication issues, to ease food issues. That's how we started it. So if you want to suddenly change it to in perpetuity, my concern is that county council or the county executive or the powers that be will simply take the fund. And then we will lose the ability that we currently have to use that fund for the good of the inmates.
So you want to do it for 1 year only for 2023 and not have to present it
I
again?
say we start with 3 months and we see how things are going. We should hopefully have our jail liaison hired in 3 months. You know, this way the paperwork is easier for the jail. People get their money faster. We don't have to wait until this happens 5 days into the month. We can get that going faster. So the original, let's do it 3 months. Let's see how it goes. We can reconsider it in 3 months. But what I don't want to do is risk the fact that the Incarcerated Individuals Welfare Fund will be taken out of the control of this board and put into the general fund.
Within the next 12 months?
That's what I don't want to have happen.
And why do you think that that would happen if we did this as opposed to before, especially when it shows how much the revenues for the county is growing by them utilizing these funds?
There is a risk. There's going to be an election. There's going to be people hired. There's going to be new people coming in. Let's do it 3 months. Let's see what happens. See if it makes it easier on the jail to get the money into people's hands so that they can use it.
Then I would like to ask, what is the hang up with getting it in? Because there's never been a hang up before. So what is the problem?
There's always a delay. They always get it later because we have to approve it, then they have to go through and do it. And we don't approve it till the middle of the first week, almost the end of the first week.
Right, so let's say they get it on the 20th of every month. They're still getting it once a month. It's not as much as they're...
Because some people will be gone by the 20th. And they wouldn't get it at all.
Okay.
And they're allowed to take it out. So if they get discharged on the 15th and it was approved on the 5th, they get discharged on the 15th, but the money doesn't come until the 20th, they're not getting the money.
Okay.
So if we just have it on an automatic basis for the first 3 months, let's see how it goes. You want to talk about a pilot program, let that be the pilot program, the 3 months, and let's see how it goes.
Okay, what is the argument against the full year then? If the argument was the budget, what is, I haven't seen a problem for which you're trying to solve. So if the solution is we shouldn't have to do this every month, hell, I agree. I'm the one who has to remember to write it every month before we come to this meeting. I am not against that at all. I mean, I just don't understand why 3 months. If we want to extend it, let's make it 6.
Then keep it every month, but I will not support a year.
Will you support 6 months?
I am worried about what's going to happen to the fund.
Will you support?
And I don't want to see us lose control over the fund, which is a possibility. And then you lose an awful lot of the stuff that we are hoping to be able to do with the fund.
Okay, so 6 months? Is that? I just would better like to understand what the problem is.
I'm not going to sit here and debate you.
I
I would agree to 3 months as a pilot, and that's what I would vote for,
Okay,
and that would be it. So, you know, if you want to do it farther than that.
Make a motion, I will second it. Sure, so nothing changes, $125 a month on the 1st of every month to every person in the jail from the Incarcerated Individuals Welfare Fund for the next 3 months.
Correct.
So I just got to put a little alert on my calendar to remind me to write it every 3 months, as opposed to every month. Cool.
Well, you already have a friendly amendment.
Someone has seconded that.
Well, that was your friendly
was
amendment.
the
If she's
amendment.
accepting the friendly amendment, then I don't think we need a second.
Under duress, but yes.
We done.
Yes.
So the motion, and all in
Motion
favor?
is carried. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved. With that being said, we'll now go to the ward.
Sorry, can we include, though, that we get a report on how much it was every month, since we're not going to know now?
Sure.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Deputy Toma.
Since the friendly amendment was to reflect the population of the first of the month, for this month, are we using the current population as just our guideline for it?
No, I thought you said you were going to do it every month.
For the first of every month. So for this month, if the first of the month was 1372, then that's the number. But for the next month, if it's not 1372, it'll be whatever the population is on the first of the month.
And can we consider after the first 3 months, if everything goes great, extending it for longer? I just want to make this a permanent program. It has worked. It has not drained the incarcerated individuals welfare fund balance. That's what the fund is for. Every month I worry, oh, is it going to pass this month? And it's like, why would we not just make this a forever thing?
Thank you, Ms. Warden, your report.
Just present the motion.
Happy New Year and good afternoon, board members. First thing I would like to talk about is reentry services. A total of 16 individuals completed asbestos removal training on December the 16th through the Reentry Center. All 16 individuals received the Pennsylvania Department of Labor Asbestos Occupation Certificate. The Reentry Center also held a lead abatement training class on December the 28th through the 30th. This was the second time this program has been offered at the jail, and 16 individuals participated. Our Reentry Center staff also met with CareerLink and Partner for Work for a new program that will begin in January. CareerLink staff will be coming to the jail to offer career counseling and coaching following release. They will make presentation on the housing units and will be available to speak individually to incarcerated individuals. Inmate programs. In our inmate program department, oversaw the return of our county veteran service to the Veterans Pod on December the 7th. County representatives presented on the Veterans Pod and shared information about services offered to incarcerated veterans following release. This included information about federal benefits through the VA, Pennsylvania state benefits, and Allegheny County benefits, as well as information about discharge upgrade requests and additional available community resources. Inmate programs plan to expand programming opportunities for the Veterans Pod in the coming months. On December the 15th, the Inmate Program and Reentry Service Department hosted a tour of West Allegheny County High School criminal justice students. They toured the housing unit, intake department, reentry center, and the education department, which included a presentation from one of our incarcerated juveniles outlining the program. Reintegrative services. The Reintegrative Service Department held a 3-day medication-assisted treatment training program in December with the jail's alternative housing partners, reentry, and caseworker teams. A total of 89 individuals applied for benefits in the medical assistance program in December. So far, 76 have active insurance and 13 applications remain under review. This is a part of a pilot program that seeks to enroll all eligible individuals in a health care plan prior to their release from our facility. For the year, the Reintegrative Service Department has transferred 644 individuals to alternative housing and 235 to inpatient treatment through our diversion program. Training. A total of 329 staff members have completed training in verbal de-escalation and interpersonal communication through our partnership with the Department of Human Services. Trainings are continuing into the new year. Chaplaincy. The Foundation of Hope packed and distributed 1,800 holiday gift packages to incarcerated individuals. Packing occurred on December the 7th, and the distribution occurred on December the 14th. Interested individuals can watch a video documenting the process on our county's social media channels. The Chaplains Department also mailed 2 holiday greeting cards free of charge for all incarcerated individuals. Discharge and Release Center. We welcome our new director for the Discharge and Release Center in December. Ms. Megan Owens takes over the department. Ms. Owens previously worked in the jail's records department. In December, the DRC saw 143 individuals and issued 160 bus passes and 34 boxes of Narcan. Facilities. On December the 5th, an incarcerated individual's loved one called the jail and said that their loved one's cell on Pod 1 Bravo was so cold that her breath could be seen. We immediately dispatched 2 captains to the unit to take temperatures. The temperatures in the individual cells was recorded at 70.7 degrees Fahrenheit. The temperature in the day room was recorded at 71.5 degrees Fahrenheit. The individual remained in the unit in the cell. On December the 16th, an incarcerated individual complained about the heat on 3 Bravo. Jail administration was dispatched to the pod and took temperatures that registered in the low 60s. Facilities was alerted, began working on a heating issue, and the temperature was raised to 71 degrees by 7 p.m. that evening. Please note that the jail has implemented the following procedures when receiving temperature complaints. Based on the National Institute of Corrections recommendations that temperatures should always be between 69 degrees to 76 degrees on the pods and in the cells. Captains have been issued temperature gauges and will take the ambient air temperature in the day room and on 3 cells on the lower tier and 3 cells on the upper tier. The jail has also ordered 1,000 additional suicide blankets. And finally, the jail has readied 2 currently unused pods should the incarcerated individuals need to be moved due to temperature concerns. Employee of the Month. We would like to congratulate our employees of the month for December. They are registered nurse Michael Warner and our new Discharge and Release Center Coordinator Megan Owens, who was recognized for her work in her previous role as a records clerk. I would like to turn it over to Deputy Tuma to discuss adding the JOB minutes to the tablets. Deputy Tuma.
So at the last Jail Oversight Board meeting, there was a motion approved for the addition of the Jail Oversight Board meeting minutes to be added to the tablets. In conversation with the vendor Viapath, who oversees the use and the programming of the tablets, we identified the best mechanism to distribute this was through facility messaging. So all minutes have been added to the tablets. Additionally, to communicate to the incarcerated population that the minutes are there, we also have issued a facilities message that will be seen on the tablet anytime a new individual were to log on for the first time, informing them that this resources is here. So rather than just putting the minutes on the tablets where they may not know that resource is there, this message will appear every time they log in so that they know it is available, informing them of the history of the use of those minutes.
Thank you for that. That's very cool.
Bag meals. At the last meeting, the board requested information pertaining to Policy 315, our bag meal policy. This policy is in effect to provide meals to individuals that have used their food trays as weapons to assault correctional employees and other incarcerated individuals. These are the same bag meals that are provided to individuals that leave our facility and that go to court when they are housed in our intake department. The State Department of Corrections also have an alternative meal policy for the same reasons. Use of force numbers. We received an email from Ms. Howland requesting information regarding the use of force numbers. Chief Beeson has provided a written copy documenting the number, type, and pod of each incident. Due to safety and security concerns, we will not be providing details surrounding each use of force in this setting, but we will be more than happy to discuss these issues in an executive session. Jail Oversight Board inspection.
No, I don't have a written copy of it. Am I missing it? When?
Today.
Like just before the meeting?
Like earlier today when I received.
Like when you sent the agenda at 10 a.m.?
Like when you sent your motion yesterday at the last minute? It happens. I'm in court. You continue, Warden. Yes, sir.
Jail Oversight Board inspections. Finally, we want to thank the Jail Oversight members for visiting our facility so that they can take a first-hand look at the operations. We appreciate the feedback provided by the members of the JOB and from incarcerated individuals themselves. We take those comments seriously, and we work thoroughly to evaluate our processes and procedures to maintain the safety and security of both our employees and our incarcerated individuals. Having said that, we would like to provide clarity on certain concerns that were raised during the recent written reports. Dr. Brinkman, I would like to present Dr. Brinkman.
There were a couple of things that were a little bit unclear what the issues were that were raised. So there was a reference that 149 in intake were waiting for to see a psychiatrist. So that number would have been waiting across throughout the whole facility. Is that what you were finding? Okay. So when I estimated what our grand population was around the time that you guys were there, that's about 11% of our population. So overall, we have much higher amount who would be involved with mental health services. So at that time, also, we were experiencing a turnover with our behavioral health provider team, which I had brought up in my reports in the meetings throughout the fall. So since that time, the team has almost entirely been refilled between advanced practice practitioners and the psychiatrists that we have on site. So just to jump ahead, so you know where we're at right now, we had, when I left for the meeting, we had 76 people waiting, with the longest waiting 11 days. So there's a lot that has happened since that point in time. So it was also unclear what other mental health wait times that you guys were finding. Generally speaking, the non-emergency wait times that we have would be for various reasons, whether it's clinical reasons that we've scheduled them out, or so I'm not entirely sure what other kind of mental health wait times you were seeing for delays. In regards to the time spent in intake, we've talked about a variety of issues that influence how long somebody is in intake, particularly up until the point that they're booked into our facility. So that could be awaiting things from the arresting agencies, waiting on court proceedings, pretrial services, all those kinds of things. So we do prioritize after they are booked to our facility to do our best to get them out of the intake holding up into intake housing around 24 hours. And monitor that each shift. So there was a reference of 5 days, and I personally haven't ever seen that, so I would want to know more information about that. There was a reference about the staffing complement in intake regarding healthcare. So I went back and I wasn't able to verify a time that we had ever had 4 nurses in intake. So what I was wondering, it's pretty common in our facility, all of our healthcare staff wear black scrubs, that someone might think just because they're in black scrubs, they're a nurse. I don't know if that was a previous misconception of thinking that in the past we had 4 nurses down there. Could have been mental health specialists, medical assistants, and things like that. Our nursing staffing has decreased for a lot of different reasons. But we also had never had a mental health nurse in intake. So that mental health nurses were dedicated up to the mental health units that we have. And then I am interested to know what kinds of decision-making there was concerned that healthcare was not able to make independently. So there was a reference that administration influences medical decision-making. So I can say that there, I have not seen an instance where clinical decisions were made by non-clinical practitioners, but there are process and procedures and collaboration that maybe processes were influenced. So that I wanted to speak to a little bit.
Next, I would like to address comments about the kitchen. Both members noted that the kitchen appeared clean. As we reported previously, the exterminator comes twice a week, and that food staff is instructed to ensure that quality food meets expectations. Regarding staffing, the number of summoned employees is a contract issue. So this is the perfect time to address that we are currently rewriting our request for proposal for our next food vendor. Deputy Tummel can provide more information.
At the October NCCHC conference, which Dr. Brinkman attended, there was a topic of discussion on expectations to support patient outcomes, including dietary services, was addressed. This discussion not only looked at those with medical conditions, but universal standards as a tool to improve overall health. The universal standards exceeded that of the USDA daily nutrition recommendation and food pattern recommendations, which were included in the original RFP that we put out. Because these new expectations were so much more in detail, we rejected the proposals that were submitted with the original RFP, with the intent to publish a new RFP including those new standards and a vendor-friendly timeline for proposal submissions, review, and award for the vendor to demonstrate compliance with the required RFP requirements prior to the start date that the contract would resume.
We would like to thank the board for bringing the coats on the pod to our attention. Coats will be made available earlier in the year going forward, as well as new policies I mentioned earlier designed to ensure enforcement of NCCHC temperature guidelines. Lastly, the jail is committed to addressing all issues immediately. We welcome the JLB members who toured the facility. We also appreciate being notified when an issue is encountered so that we can take immediate action if not raised in another way. Your Honor, we are available for questions.
Yeah, quickly, thank you for doing the coats. That's a good thing. I mean, what we were told was the end of November, so thank you for doing that. Just a couple things. Where we got those staffing issues in intake was from colleagues yourself. So as we were talking to nurses down there, that's where we were gathering that information. So it came directly from what they had seen. People had been there for a while. And I know you mentioned the food vendor. Can we have a copy? I know you're redoing the RFP. Can we get a copy of what the new standards would be?
The ones from the NCCHC conference?
Yeah, for the new food service vendor. Oh.
Well, what came from the conference was the oral discussions from the sessions.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So
I thought
I wish
in
I
the
could
new
get more about
RFP
that.
there would be higher standards, but.
There is.
Okay.
We're in the process of writing that along with a couple other elements that we're addressing. So once that RFP is completed, as previously we did, we'll supply it to the board.
Okay, perfect. And then I just have a couple questions because unfortunately I have to go. But the NCCHC, I know that we can't get a draft, but I'm wondering if the board and the jail is willing to do maybe even an executive session just for an update on where that process would be. Because we ask the questions all the time. I think it's good to at least get that information. So again, Judge Halsey can probably set that up if you're willing to do. I know we can't get a draft, but I think it's good to keep us in the loop of that.
Mr. Connor, I will assure you that before the next JLB meeting, you guys will have a copy of that report.
Oh, it's going to be done
before the next meeting, you guys will have it in your hand.
All right, so the NCCHC report will be here next month. Okay.
For the suicide review is what I'm discussing.
Okay.
Okay.
That's good. That's good to have. I also wondered on the inspection, I know there's a draft. And we can't talk about the draft report.
I would prefer not to talk about a draft report.
Right. No, what I'm asking instead of discussing the draft report, can we do an exec session on that? Just where they are, how far along it is.
Controller O'Connor, I just want to warn you that anything that's presented to us in executive session, we are not allowed to talk about in a public setting. So I would shy away from executive session. This is something that really needs to be discussed here.
I just wanted to get some information to see where we are, but I'll wait for the public. So next month we'll have the suicide by, what's our meeting, February 5th? Somewhere in there. So we'll have that report from them.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then just two other things. AA at the jail itself. So I know that Hope has been doing their project. Are we now doing internal? I know we used to have, I think his name was Jack, used to do that. Are we back on him staffing and doing
We have
AA?
visitors coming in for AA meetings.
Okay,
at
but
multiple
internally, we don't do that anymore?
What do you mean internally?
Didn't we have an internal process? So we're bringing the Hope organization to come in and have those meetings.
No. Alcoholics Anonymous is happening by a representative from Alcoholics Anonymous.
Is coming in, yeah. But internally, did we not do programs like that in the past?
They were on pause throughout the pandemic. We did
Okay.
them. They're just back on site.
On site now. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. I think those are all my questions for right now. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Ms. Klein?
I guess my head's a little spinning over the visit from high school students to ACJ. I'm just wondering, I guess if you could explain why the jail did it, what the benefit was to the people who are incarcerated or the staff who work there.
The school requested a tour for the for the students to come to our facility. They felt that it was important to see our jail. We took them to our empty pod, reentry services, and intake. So we just felt as though it was really important for students to see a jail and what happens when you come to jail. And we've done it before, you know what I'm saying, before the pandemic. And it's really good to see that we are starting that back again. We do not do Scared Straight programs.
Did you say they met with the juvenile?
They did have a conversation with the juvenile, yes ma'am.
Excuse us.
I just want to confirm that there was consent, or I guess, did you get consent from a parent of them to be able to talk?
We don't need consent from a parent for them to have a conversation with a juvenile.
No, I think she means consent from the people coming to do the tour.
No.
Consent from the individual? I misunderstood, sorry.
Yeah, I meant, did you get consent from the parents to have
School would get the consent.
their child talk to?
I would have to check into that. I will check into that, Ms. Klein.
I would just like to publicly state that I'm concerned about high school students, and maybe it's a policy, and I need to be better educated coming in, and especially meeting with juveniles.
I will have more information about this at the next meeting, okay?
And my one other question was, do we have a number of, it says 0 juvenile contact visits. Do we have a number of juvenile visits that family?
No one in our jail received contact visits. Everyone receives non-contact visits.
Right, and do we get any number of juveniles who receive non-contact visits?
The juvenile count is included in those numbers.
Okay.
Ms. Hallam?
Yeah. Okay. First of all, I just want to clarify. How did you know about the meeting with a juvenile? I just saw the pictures. I didn't know about that they were talking with a child that was incarcerated. But a meeting? I thought it was just they peered in and saw it. I didn't know they had a conversation.
The warden indicated that the juvenile that is incarcerated spoke with the people from high school.
Okay. Not just the parent, their lawyer. Was their lawyer asked? That is basic 101. You're having an incarcerated individual who is in the county jail because they're a pending trial. So they have an upcoming trial, and they spoke with a group of students before even going to trial without a lawyer present, without parent or guardian consent. I just can't even believe that that's something that crossed anybody's mind to do. Is everyone in here welcome to come and get this same tour of the jail? I mean, that was a question. What? Okay, sorry, I will rephrase it in a more classy way. So what is the criteria for someone to come in and tour the jail, to receive that tour that you gave?
They would have to put a request into me for approval. They would have to be vaccinated, and they would have to state the nature of their request for the tour, and we would make a determination as to whether or not it would be approved.
Okay, and by what grounds do you decide approval?
Ms. Hallam, I will get you all that information at the next meeting. I don't have all of that right now, but I just given you a preliminary summary as to what is needed.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to understand my frustration when you say that every meeting. I'm going to get you all those answers, and then we don't get them. There was one month, I think it was last month, was it, guys, where we got actually answers to our questions prior to the next meeting. So I'm just really concerned. Okay, so along those lines, Controller O'Connor had asked about 12-step meetings. So I have had an organization that has been reaching out to me, and they want to bring in additional 12-step meetings to offer more variety, to make them more frequent. Can you explain to me what the process is to get them approved to do that?
We have been working with some other organizations, so they may be overlapping. I don't know for sure.
I know this one isn't because he has told me that he has been ignored. So I'm just wondering if a 12-step meeting wants to come into the jail, what is the procedure for them being allowed to do that?
Any one of us can connect them with how we're organizing the 12 steps.
Okay, so you just want me to send you their contact information? Is that what you're?
You can do it that way, that's
okay. Or send an email connecting the two of you?
Sure.
Okay. All right, lots of questions here. So the first thing is, so I just want to understand, I know Controller O'Connor and Ms. Klein had mentioned something about like they had heard an update about the NCCHC when they were at their visit. And so I'm just wondering, is there any more investigation review left in, not the one specifically about the update for the suicide prevention, but more about jail deaths?
No.
So all of the investigation, all of the tours, all of the inspections have all been completed, and there's a draft? That was just the first reference I had heard was tonight.
NCCHC has reported to the jail, and they have done their review of the mortalities at our jail.
Okay, and the timeline for the next step?
I don't have that available at this time.
Okay, so we paid them all this money and they never said we will have that done by this date?
So, Ms. Hallam, I'd like to remind you that that contract for the death review was entered in with the county manager's office. So as the warden stated, they have completed their review at the facility for which we coordinated. So we would have to defer the completeness of that timeline back to who entered into that contract with NCCH.
And do you see anybody in this room from that office? Well, it's just, I don't want to refer to you as a member of the board because I'm getting real frustrated about that.
But I don't have that answer, but I could look for, I don't know, I know we have a draft report. I don't want to be finalized, but I could try to work on getting you that answer.
So one member of this board has a draft report, but the rest of us do not?
I didn't say I had the draft report.
No, I know you're not a member. I mean, your office, so the county executive has a draft. I'm truly not trying to be like snippy or anything. I really just want to know why one member of this board has a draft of a report that is so crucial to our work here and no one else does.
And he indicated that he does not have the report. You have another question?
Yeah, I do have a lot of other questions. Okay, so a public commenter has brought up having voting information on tablets. And so, Ms. Toma, you actually gave me a good idea about how you said you sent an alert out about, hey, meeting minutes are on here. We're going to let you know every time you log on. Could you do the same thing about voting rights and voting information and election dates? And
We already did, as reported previously. We did that as well as we had it on the monitors on the pod. So that's something we've already had a program for, which was reported on previous meetings. So we'll continue to do that for every election as we have, as well as our caseworkers going around and our AIU staff going around to get people registered, as well as the day of voting. So we will continue that procedure.
yes, I very much understood that it has been done in what you refer to as election season, but I'm wondering if it's something that we could like have as an ongoing thing, there, like so that people always know what their rights are.
So that notice would have, the incarcerated individuals do not appreciate having that notice every time you log onto a tablet because it's something they have to go through. It's actually feedback we've gotten. So the notice that we're putting on is for that first time they log on that tells them, hey, this resource is there. So that material is, I believe, and I'll have to confirm it, I believe it is always on the tablet.
It is.
So your ask is to have that notice every time they log on, so they're going to have to walk through it every single time?
Not as much the notice as the information always being accessible to them.
Yeah, I believe it is, but I'll confirm that information is on the tablet.
And that's not just how to register, but also who is eligible, what each office is that could appear on your ballot. That's all of that information you think is there?
I would have to look into it.
Okay. Next question is, I'm really concerned, this is now the second time from Ms. Klein and Controller O'Connor's report that we've heard about religious practices. I actually sent out an email to the full board and the entire administration here about another issue I had heard. I don't know if you want me to repeat it or if you just got the email and ignored it, but it was reported to me by an individual's attorney that they had converted to Buddhism about 7 months ago, of more than 60 days after they had been incarcerated, and that they were told that they cannot get a vegan diet in accordance with religious accommodations because they did not make that request within 60 days of being incarcerated, but they converted while they were incarcerated, so they wouldn't have made that request when they came in. So I'm just wondering, can you speak to these various denials of religious accommodations, the lack of communal prayer, the woman who had her headscarf confiscated, and the man who was denied vegan diet in accordance with his Buddhist religion?
I'm going to respond to the email that you sent to us, and my response is this. Currently, individuals must contact the chaplain's department within 30 days of incarceration should they choose to convert to another religion and request a special religious diet. This policy is designated to prevent people from changing religions to get different meals, to get different meal trays, which has occurred in the past. This individual is currently under review. In this case, this individual contacted the chaplain's department 8 months after his committal. He first requested meal changes from the healthcare department and food vendors when he was denied by both. He then sought the same meal change, but the meal for religious purposes. Individuals are free to practice any religion they choose and can change their religion with the chaplain's department at any time. The 30-day window applies only to meal changes. ACJ administration and the chaplain's department and the law department will be meeting this week to review the specifics of this policy. And you guys were emailed this also today.
Man, I don't check my email an hour before coming here. I'm getting ready for the meeting and I'm commuting here. Anyways, so wait, I just want to confirm so that if you change your religion after you have been incarcerated for 30 days. According to the current policy, you will not be afforded any dietary restrictions that are in accordance with your religion.
Ms. Hallam, I am going to stick to the email that I just read. Any further conversations pertaining to this, we will have to do in executive session.
No. Okay, so that was a very simple question. I just wanted to clarify what you had already said, because again, I did not see this email. You must have sent it this afternoon. You must change your dietary restrictions within 30 days of being incarcerated, or you cannot change them again, regardless if it's for religious accommodation.
Again, do you want me to read the email again?
Yeah, actually, would you read the email, please? That would be helpful.
I'm going to read the email again.
Yeah.
Currently, individuals must contact the chaplain's department within 30 days of incarceration should they choose to convert to another religion and request a special religious diet. This policy is designed to prevent people from changing religions to get different meal trays, which has occurred in the past. This individual request is currently under review. In this case, the individual contacted the chaplain's department 8 months after his committal. He first requested meal changes from the health staff and food vendors when he was denied by both. He then sought the same meal change, but the meal for religious purposes. Individuals are free to practice any religion they choose and can change their religion with the chaplain's department at any time. The 30-day window applies to only meal changes. The ACJ administration, the chaplain's department, and the law department will be meeting this week to review the specific requests of this policy. Anything else about this request we will have to talk about in executive session when I finish reviewing this with the law department.
Yeah, so religion is not something that is covered under exceptions that need to be discussed in executive session. This is not a safety or security concern, and this is not a personnel matter. So we're not going to talk about everything that you don't want to talk about in executive session. We're going to talk about it in this form that we get to talk about it. So I want to say is, one, are you saying that there's a religion registry with the chaplain's office that you maintain? And is there a religious registry?
I'm not going to speak any more about this subject, ma'am.
Are you aware that some religions require specific dietary restrictions?
I am aware.
Okay. Oh my God. Sorry, I just wasn't expecting that to be the answer. Okay. Next question is, so are there any situations in which the schooling for the children in the Allegheny County Jail is withheld? Like, is there any time where if they're in the hole or there's some reason why schooling is withheld from individuals?
Anybody under disciplinary housing.
I can't hear. I think it's broke.
Any juvenile under disciplinary housing, the teachers, the school is brought to that individual on the housing unit because we can't mix them in with the other juveniles down in the classrooms.
Right, but the actual schooling, the education is never paused.
No.
Okay. Okay, the next question is about meals, since we've been talking about that. Who works in the kitchen on Sundays and holidays? Warden Harper, who staffs the kitchen on Sundays and holidays?
We have our summit vendor, and the inmate workers are down there.
Okay, so incarcerated individuals are staffing the jail on holidays and Sundays?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Well, not cool, but do you keep a record of the times that meals are served to each pod? In the same way that I think you had referenced in the past that you do keep a record of like when medications are passed each pod. Is there a record that is kept about meals delivered?
It would be logged in the individual housing unit log books that's maintained by the corrections officers on there.
Okay, and so how much time, is there a policy that the jail has about how much time there is to be between meals?
Between meals?
Yeah, like for example, is there any policy that says no meals should be served less than 4 hours apart, no meals should be served more than 12 hours apart?
I don't have the policy in front of me. I can review that.
But I'm just asking if a policy exists that dictates time between meals.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
So in the inspection report that was filed by Ms. Klein and Mr. O'Connor, it stated that folks were concerned because they were receiving dinner at 3 o'clock. We don't start preparing the dinner trays to be placed into the meal carts and sent upstairs to the pods until 4 p.m. So,
Ms. Klein?
I was just.
We'll turn your mic.
I don't have my notes in front of me, but I was just repeating what the summit people told us when we were there.
they might start cooking the meals at 3 o'clock, but they're not plated and put on the carts for delivery until 4 p.m. We have to deliver to 26 housing units, so there is a time gap from 4 p.m. until the last cart goes out, but that's the process.
And then what time do you start serving breakfast in the morning?
The first cart goes out a little after 6 a.m. That's for our disciplinary housing units, and then the other housing units follow those.
Okay. And so are you sure to make sure that the people who got dinner at 4 are the people who get dinner the earliest and the people who get dinner last? Like, is there a
It's the same lineup.
It's the same lineup every time? Okay.
Yeah.
And what other nutritional products are provided in that 14-hour period that no food is served? That 14 hours, 4 p.m. to 6 a.m. I mean, math isn't really like my forte, but that's 14. So what is provided to incarcerated individuals, food, beverages between 4 p.m. and 6 a.m.?
$125 worth of commissary.
You give them an extra $125?
No, we don't.
Oh, yeah.
The jail doesn't provide anything past dinner.
Okay, cool. So from...
Do they get lunch?
Yeah, they get lunch, but I'm just talking about the gap between dinner and breakfast.
Well, so is it, what time do you serve lunch?
Lunch starts about 11 a.m.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I would really appreciate if we could get those. If you need me to put this in an email so they can like remember the things that we request in here, I can start doing that. I just thought you were taking notes throughout our meetings. But could you bring us those logs on times that meals are served?
From the individual units? Mm-hmm. That would be way too burdensome to gather that information.
But I mean, you already have the information. I'm just asking that you give it to us.
We don't maintain that. That's on each individual housing unit, by each shift, by each officer that logs those things in there.
And where do those logs end up?
Where do they end up? When the logs are full?
Yeah, after they're filled out on the housing unit. They stay on the housing unit till they're full.
No, this is the daily activity logs that the corrections officer maintains every day. It's a book.
Okay, so there's no tracking in the kitchen of when the meals go out? Like the kitchen doesn't keep track on, okay, we sent the first dinners out at 4, we sent the first breakfast out at 6?
I'd have to follow up with Summit.
Okay, yes, and the lunch. You know, I'm forgetting lunch because that's the biggest gap is 14 hours of no food, no drinks, nothing. I mean, yeah, so either if there is a kitchen log of when meals are served, yes, please provide that to us. But if not, then yes, the daily logs will do. Okay, next question is, hold on. Oh, okay. So we heard today from an individual who said that folks were coming into the jail and being denied visitors in mail in the instance that they were entering the jail. Can someone speak to why someone would enter the jail and not be allowed visits or mail?
We would not be able to answer that until we get the name of the individual, et cetera, et cetera. So when we're provided with that information, I think Mr. Pilarski said that he's going to get the information.
Yes, I understand, and I believe it's being held up behind you, but I'm asking if you could just speak, I know you're going to speak to that person about her individual situation with her child, but I'm wondering if you could speak broadly to situations where someone would enter the jail and on day 1 of the jail be told no visits, no mail.
I will provide that information at the next meeting.
Does anyone here know that?
You have another question?
We will provide that information at the next meeting, Ms. Howland.
Okay. Can you speak to how separation orders happen? If there's an altercation between 2 incarcerated individuals, is there no mandatory separation order put in place?
If there's an altercation on a housing unit, either the staff member involved with dealing with that situation can put the keep separates in, or the classification department can.
Okay, but there is no, there is a physical altercation, these people should not be housed together anymore policy?
Yeah, that's what I just described.
Okay, so every time there is a physical altercation, it is not a definite separation. You're saying
No,
it is up.
it absolutely is a definite separation.
Okay, we heard from someone earlier who spoke of there being an altercation and no separation, so I'm just wondering if there's any instance where that would happen.
If we had more specific details, we could research this.
Which, again, you will be getting that, but I'm asking if there's any specific situation in which there could be a physical altercation between 2 individuals and they would still continue to be housed on the same pod after they were put in the hole or...
On the segregated housing unit, they can be on the same unit because we have physical separations. When they time out from there, go back to general population, they should not be on the same unit.
Okay, and you're going to look into that one. All right, next question is about, sorry, I'm going to bring up the book subcommittee later, but I didn't know if we plan to do report on the jail visits that we got the written report on, or if I should ask any questions to the administration that I have on that now. Are you going to be presenting verbally? No, it's just the writing? Okay. So, we heard that there has been times, at least in these instances, where there's no night shift for mental health staff, and I know you spoke to that's never the case in intake, but I'm wondering what is the plan for dealing with a mental health crisis whenever there is no mental health staff?
I didn't say there was never an instance where there was someone not there. What I had said earlier is that there may be instances someone mistook a mental health specialist for a nurse. So it's not that we don't have someone on I'm not sure I understood.
So if I remember what you were referencing here is that people might have mistook somebody else in black scrubs as being a different position. That's like kind of what I thought. But I'm saying that we got a report that there was no night shift for mental health staff. And I'm wondering, is there at least one mental health practitioner on staff 24/7 at the jail?
We've worked to cross-train our night shift to be able to, at least at minimum notice, and respond to the emergency situations. So there may be an assistant director of nursing on site or other positions that would be able to respond.
But is there a mental health practitioner on staff in the jail 24/7?
Are you talking about a prescriber at that level, or?
No, I'm talking about a mental health practitioner, not just someone who's been cross-trained in it because we had no staff to give instead. I know the answer is no. I just really like to hear it myself.
I'm not being disrespectful to you. I appreciate.
You're not being disrespectful at all. I just would really like the question
But I feel like you are to
answered.
me, so that's why
I'm so
asking
sorry.
you not to be.
I did not mean to make you feel that way, but could we just answer the questions as I ask? Is there always a person on staff that is a certified mental health practitioner?
The way you're asking the question, no.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that answer. Then another thing is, over the weekend, it says that there was no nurse stationed in intake. Is there a nurse in intake 24/7?
We do not have 24/7 coverage. There are times that we have gaps.
Okay.
But we have nurses in the building, and we have people trained to be able to respond. We have protocols set in place when those things are not the case.
Okay.
So the questions you're asking are very pointed, but they're also not the whole picture.
Correct, but they are intentionally very pointed because I would like pointed answers. That's the only reason. I don't mean at all to ever come across as disrespectful. I just really want some pointed answers. The next question I have is, so the report I know you had spoke to, there was some turnover about staff, and so in this report, 149 people were in line to see a psychiatrist with the longest wait to be seen 71 days. So what I'm wondering is, since you say that's now been resolved, I think, and it's 11 now, 7, 11, okay, and there's, I think, half that number of people in line you reported. 76, yeah, so 76 people in line and 11 days is the longest wait time. How long did we go? Like, how high did wait times get up to during that overlap with no staff?
It was approximately around the same ballpark of timeframes.
Okay, and what specifically was the cause for that? There was just a person being trained, or there was a hole that you were trying to fill staffing-wise?
There was turnover in our behavioral health provider team.
Okay. And you had explained that that is no longer the case because we have hired someone.
Correct.
Okay. The next thing is about the fans in the kitchen. There was a report that the fans don't work in the kitchen. I was wondering if somebody could speak to if that was a maintenance issue that was on your plate and if you plan to fix it.
It's been fixed. So we had to disable the exhaust fans for a short period of time because it was affected by the roofing project. Okay, the fans where they came out, that roof was being replaced. We had to disable the fans to make it a safe working environment for the folks on the roof. Okay. Once that was complete, they were re-energized, they're back to work.
Okay, so it wasn't that the fans were broken, they were turned off while you were doing construction on the roof?
Correct.
Okay, cool. The next thing I'm wondering is about the trays, because I've seen how gross they are, we hear how gross they are, and the machine from this report was not properly cleaning the trays, and then they have to be cleaned multiple times because food material was present after they came out the cleaner. I know you have probably seen this before. Has there been any discussion about a new dishwasher? I mean, my dishwasher doesn't do that. Anyone?
So the trays would have been sterilized, they still would have gone through a heating process. So yes, though we don't want to see food on the tray, it would have been sterilized because of the temperature at which the machine does wash the dishes. And in regards to purchasing a new dishwasher, we're always looking at those through our capital funding. So that is something that we are looking into.
Okay, I appreciate that. And then I know we kind of got into it with the meals and meal requests for religious accommodations, but can somebody speak to the policy for headscarves and people using headscarves in the jail for religious needs?
At this time, I don't think that we can speak about that. We will have to look at our policy and get back to you at the next meeting.
Do you guys think it would be helpful if we just like brought a book of policies to every meeting? I don't know, just something I'm thinking. I'm not trying to like stop the questions or anything. I'm just like hearing a lot of things that are really concerning, and I'm wondering if anybody else up here has any ideas for how we can get these answers in each meeting.
Amen. You have another question?
I do have some more questions, actually. The other question I have was about the library, right? So in old business, I am going to discuss our book subcommittee that met and some questions that we had as a result of it. But I know we just keep hearing all the time that there are these 20,000 books, but it sounds like Ms. Klein and Controller O'Connor looked really, really hard for them. And I'm wondering if you could tell us for future reference, like when one of us come for our next visit, where exactly they are located in the jail so I can observe.
The new library is physically located in AIU on the eastern part of the AIU facility in a new built room adjacent to commissary.
Adjacent to commissary, okay. And how many books are there?
Again, we are inventorying the books. We have the library that's downstairs and the ones that are up on the pod. So as per previous meetings, we've stated we're trying to inventory all of them because they weren't previously inventoried for what was downstairs as what was deployed to the pods.
And so where did that 20,000 number come from if they weren't inventoried?
Physical count done by the individual at the time back in 2020 of the facility. And like we mentioned, we're still working to extract that information from the app that we were using to digitize the library catalog. Again, only reflective of those books that were physically downstairs and not those that were distributed throughout the facility.
And where were they when Ms. Klein and Controller O'Connor came to visit?
They were there. I physically myself am rebuilding that library in its move. So for them to say that there are only a couple hundred, I didn't count the books.
I didn't comment on the number of books, so I don't want to be asked about that. I did see the bookshelves
and the books are triple stacked in those shelves. We did increase the capacity with the new build to be double the amount of book shelving. So if you only looked at the surface value, they do stack on one shelf 3 deep.
Okay, and what about strip searches? This was the first I heard about kids being strip searched. Can someone speak to that? What that looks like, why those would ever happen?
The individuals are housed as adults in our facility. They're committed under Act 33. So anybody in the facility is subject to a search at any time.
And do you have different policies for strip searching kids under the age of 18 than you do from strip searching adults 18 and older?
No.
Same policy for a 14-year-old and a 50-year-old?
Yes.
And what would be a reason for a strip search?
To ensure nothing is being concealed on them.
Okay. And let's see if I have any more questions. Oh, okay. One of the things I wanted to ask about the NCCHC, you had said at the conference, the food guidelines. You said that it was just a verbal presentation, so you don't have written anywhere what those new guidelines are?
It was a session that I had attended where they were talking about recommendations of not necessarily limiting the increased nutritional standards to someone who's on a hypertensive diet or things like that, but offering that same quality of dietary services across the board. So those were the types of discussions. It wasn't like a handbook of standards. They were talking about just better practices and improving healthcare outcomes as a result of your dietary services.
And are those published anywhere?
No, it was a conference session, no.
Okay, but I mean, is there like data or anything that backs it up that we could read? I'm just looking for something tangible to be able to see and read.
So as we stated, Dr. Brinkman went to the conference in October and we're working through the RFP. So looking at those guidelines from healthcare where it states like this is a heart healthy meal that should be given to those individuals with hypertension, taking that same information and looking at it across for our expectations for the population as a whole. So what you're asking for is a theory of thought. It's not just increase the monetary value of a meal and increase a quality, it's increasing the healthy quality of that meal. So we have to look at those individual medical dietary needs and then extrapolate those over the entire population. So it's not a single standard, it's a philosophy. So that's something that we're trying to establish within the RFP to address that.
Okay. All right, the next thing is about the tier system for mental health care. So I know you guys talk a lot about the NCCHC and how you follow their standards. I'm just reading from the NCCHC standards for mental health care. They state that inmates who are seriously mentally ill should not be confined under conditions of extreme isolation. Rather, alternative programs that address underlying mental health programs should be considered. And so, you know, we've talked a lot about the tier system, and you have indicated that there are tier systems where they are not allowed to have visits or tablets or rec. And have you all heard of this NCCHC standard for mental health care before?
Yes, that's one portion of it.
Yes. Oh, no, I know I have the whole thing. That was just like the one I wanted to point out. Are people who are incarcerated and classified under mental health tiers 4 and 5 in isolation?
I think we as a group have all identified that isolation is different across the board. So we've talked about solitary confinement versus isolation. They're not in 100% isolation, no.
Okay. What isolation are they? How much rec time do you get on tiers 4 and 5? How much time out of their cell a day do you get if you're on those higher tiers? Do you want me to repeat it?
So there is reduced out of cell time as assessed and determined by the providers that are assessing those patients. So it's going to vary based on clinical input and assessment.
But for the tiers 4 and 5, are any people in those tiers in isolation because of their tier of mental health classification?
They would be offered up to 4 hours of rec a day.
Can folks...
Can you... The look on your face.
No, I didn't want to be. You said I was disrespectful. I wasn't trying to be disrespectful.
I appreciate that, but the look on your face makes me think that I misunderstood what your question
No, it just makes me think that Warden Harper whispered that in your ear for you to say, as opposed to.
No.
Okay.
No.
I'm sorry for assuming that. That's just what it seemed like.
No, it's okay. Can you ask your question again? Because now I'm concerned I answered it wrong.
Okay. No, that's super fair. Do people who are incarcerated under mental health tiers 4 and 5?
Okay.
Are there people in those tiers who, because of that tier status, do not get time out of their cell?
They would have been, those people would have been assessed that they are at risk of hurting themselves or others, so they may not have time out of cell.
Okay, that is what I was asking, yes. Thank you very much. I'm sorry if I asked that in a confusing way.
That's okay.
And would you call not getting time out of the cell a condition of extreme isolation?
It's also a medical emergency. So there are multiple variables in this equation here.
Okay, and do those people on tier 4 and 5 get tablets?
No.
Would you say that not being able to communicate with the outside world would be a form of extreme isolation?
I think this is a conversation way bigger than this meeting would allow for.
I know, I just am hearing a lot about NCCHC standards and how that's what we're striving to follow, and yet I have a standard in front of me that I think it's pretty clear that our current policies aren't following, and I'm, instead of asking 8 million questions about why that is, I'd rather ask pointed questions to get pointed answers.
I understand the pointed questions, but the pointed questions are very different when you're looking at a clinical situation that is very different patient to patient.
I understand.
And this is only one portion of the picture, and it's painting a very one-sided outcome in this setting, the way we're having this conversation.
Okay, so then I guess the broad question would be, is that not individual diagnoses, but the broader categorizations? Somebody's in tier 4 or tier 5. Are they getting tablets? Can they exercise in the gym? Are they having social interactions with other people in the pod? Can they participate in jail programs? Are there restrictions that are placed broadly based off of your classification of mental health tier?
There are, and there are also allowances for severe mental illness, and acutely severe mental illness is different than your general person who is more stable. These are very different populations that we're talking about. So your interpretation and what you're reading from that standard is very incomplete.
It says in here, seriously mentally ill should not be confined under conditions of extreme isolation, and that alternative programs should be used. I'm just trying to find out what alternative programs are being used, since it's
Beth,
clear.
there's a difference between somebody who has a serious mental illness and somebody who is basically 302able. And I
That's what
think
I'm
they're
trying to
talking
understand.
about people in Tier 5 who are, if they were outside, could probably be 302'd. They are people in acute crisis who are a danger to themselves or others. So no, they don't get rec because you don't want them to kill themselves during rec. Whereas somebody who is a schizophrenic who is very seriously ill but is not at that point of an acute crisis would be able to have rec. And I think that's what she's trying to tell you in a way. So, I mean, maybe it's because we're trying to use this vague language that doesn't help. So, it is somebody who is acutely ill who is not going to have the rec time because they're basically acutely ill and in crisis. They are 302able. They're not going to have rec time at Western Psych if they get taken to Western Psych on a 302.
Okay,
and I think that's what Tier 5 is, correct?
It is.
And so then can I ask what is the average time that someone is classified on a Tier 4 or Tier 5 status?
I don't have a length of stay.
It's going to depend on their illness and when they are out of that crisis mode.
Okay. Yeah, I would appreciate that information too, if this is something that people are on acutely or if this is something that they are on for long term.
Oh, they're not on it for long term. We're trying our best to move them and stabilize them. I know that to be true. I just don't have a number in front of me. I don't know what the average is.
Okay. Yeah, I understand you don't have it in front of you. I would just appreciate it in the future. Another question is, we had agreed as a board, and I thought the administration, that anytime someone had a medical crisis or something that sent them out of the facility to the hospital, that we would be informed about it, not just when someone dies inside the jail. And I got report from multiple staff members that there was a altercation that sent somebody to the hospital, and I never received a report on it. I don't know if anyone else on the board did, so I'm just wondering if you could talk about that, if you have been notifying us every time someone has been sent to the hospital.
My understanding is that it had to be a medical emergency that is going to be life-sustaining, is what I was supposed to report.
That is incorrect? Do you all remember us saying if someone goes to the hospital for a medical emergency, we need to know about it?
It wasn't if somebody goes to the hospital. It was for, I think.
Emergency, because we had a debate about what was an emergency.
Yeah, serious incident, thank you. That's what it.
So do you think that someone getting the crap beat out of them is a serious incident? Do you think that someone going to the hospital is ever not a serious incident?
I think the board just really needs to put in writing exactly what they want from us so that we can comply.
But I literally have done that before, and I don't get it. I literally
not
put
gotten
in a
anything in
very
writing.
clear email that I wanted use of force stats at this meeting and didn't get them. I have put in a clear email that I wanted information about a man who was denied religious accommodations for food, and I did not get it. We have put many things in the meeting minutes. Everything we discuss in here is in writing in the meeting minutes. You have that all. I mean, heck, the people in the jail have that now. So it is in writing, everything that we discuss here. And I know you take notes because we ask you and you say, would you like that for next meeting? And we say yes. And you write it down and we don't get it.
Responses were sent, they were emailed. Do you have another question?
No, I would like somebody up here to back me up and say that they are supposed to tell us when someone goes to the hospital and that they have not.
So
that is all I'm
I
asking
think
for.
what they said is they misunderstood.
They're not going to tell us every hospital. Some people go to the hospital because they have a visit with a doctor that is scheduled at Allegheny General Hospital across the river. They're not going to tell us about that. So why don't we clearly define what we're looking for? Any emergency situation that somebody is emergently taken to a hospital, we should know about. And then serious incident, we should sort of define serious incident. There are those definitions in the law. It's not that hard for us to find it. And then we will provide that to them and we'll get that information.
Thank you.
Does no one believe that that was what was made clear to them, that for emergency situations we were to be notified?
But I think even if it was made clear, they didn't understand it that way. So if you can provide, we can come together with definitions specifically regarding what we like.
We are not taking comments from the audience anymore.
And
what we're trying to do is get to other business that needs to be taken care of before everybody has to leave.
If everyone continues to have these outbursts, we're going to ask you to leave, because when you gave your public comments, no one cut anyone off. Everyone was permitted an opportunity to speak. So I'd ask that you extend the same courtesy to everyone else. Do you have another question?
Yes. In the past month, have there been any medical emergencies that sent an incarcerated individual to the hospital?
We've had incarcerated individuals sent to the hospital.
In the past month, have there been any medical emergencies that sent someone who was incarcerated to the hospital?
Yes, but what kind of emergencies are you talking about?
I am not talking about doctor's appointments.
Can we come back to a defined expectation?
So the question again, Ms. Hallam, medical emergency could be somebody that had, really low blood sugar and they took them to the hospital for precautionary reasons, or it could be that they were suffering cardiac arrest. The question we have to decide as a board is, do we want both of those?
Yes.
And so that's what we need to decide. And as a board, we need to decide that and provide it to them so that they're getting, part of the problem is they're not getting consistent. What does the board want versus what does just Ms. Hallam want? Okay?
I don't think that should matter.
Well, part of that,
I'm an equal member of this board.
Part of that does. They can't necessarily answer questions for every single one of us, and it provided all at every meeting. If we can be consistent and say, this is what we want, then we'll get more information and be able to move on.
But this was a thing that we voted on to say that we consistently want every month, and I hope that I'm not the only person on this board who wants these
Ms.
answers.
Hallam, we all want those answers, but they need to understand what we want. So let's sit down and figure out what is a medical emergency, what kind of medical emergency we want. Maybe we want them all, but that's something we should all talk about. We can send an email around discussing that and be able to provide that to them.
This is why people are so frustrated that we don't get anything done. This is like the one day a month that we're supposed to get stuff done. I will rephrase my question for the third time. In the past month, have there been any medical emergencies that warranted a trip to the hospital, such as blood sugar dropping too low, such as a physical altercation that landed somebody in the hospital, such as a heart attack?
Right now, we don't have that information to provide, but you just stated, Ms. Howland, that you got a report about an altercation that somebody sent to the hospital. So we would just ask for you guys to give us the definition, and we'll provide you with what you want. But we got to know exactly what you want.
I don't want to have to ask every single time I hear about it through the grapevine. I want you to be proactive and to tell us about it before we have to ask. I promise, if everyone is sick of Bethany asking a million questions, then give us the information before we get here. I am also as equally frustrated as everyone else here. I am as equally frustrated as you are for having to sit here for 3 hours every single month. But the reason is because I'm asking the same questions. When I prepare my notes for this meeting every month, very few things do I even have to change because I have to keep asking the same questions. I should not be the only person who is frustrated by it, and frankly, I will not allow anybody to act like I am being a certain type of way for asking for answers that we deserve, that we have a right to.
That's why we're saying, Ms. Hallam, is if the board provides a thing to the warden that says, this is what we want. The board wants is medical emergencies as well as serious incidents, and here's how we define them. And then if we don't get, we should get them every time. You won't have to ask those questions. So let's, as a board, have a discussion, figure out what that is, and provide it to him.
But that means that all of the board members need to agree on it. I have an equal right to information as every single other person on this board. I won't say anything about that, but.
We all agree to that, but let's make sure they understand what we mean. That's all we're saying is let's define it.
Then when.
You're in law school, you understand the definition section of a statute is sometimes the most important section. So let's define it for them so that there is no wiggle room and we get what we want.
Okay, I personally will write all of the things that I want the warden and his team to bring to these meetings every month. I will define them. I will make the greatest definition section of all time. And I will make sure that it is very clear, and I will send around to the board to let you know what I'm requesting. Not ask for permission to request it. I'm going to let you know what I'm requesting because I don't want this to be a battle. I don't want this to be a battle. I just want information. That is how this works.
No, that's absolutely not how this works.
I do not want this to be a battle. I simply want information. I want people to stop being hungry. I want people to stop dying. I want people to stop having to come here every single meeting. Every meeting. You don't want these people in the room to act like this. They wouldn't come if they got their questions answered ever.
Right.
We never do
There
that.
has to be a consensus regarding what the information that we as a board are requesting. Do you have another question?
No, that's all I have. It's a general principle of just yins let this happen.
I am willing to do a little research on medical emergencies and write something up, and I'll submit it to Judge Housey, and he can forward it around, and we can. I do think there is value in coming to a consensus.
Absolutely.
But you can see how hard it is for us to come to a meeting, just a subcommittee meeting, or to pick a liaison, or all of this is taking so long.
But that's why we can do it by an email. We all get our emails. We all respond to our emails. Having us all on our different schedules meet is very difficult. I acknowledge that.
Which is why this is the day we meet every month to get those answers.
But if we can provide it in advance, we'll actually get answers instead of we'll hear it next week.
But remember.
We'll hear it next month. That's why we want to provide it in advance. So if we can all come to those definitional agreements, we give it to them, we're going to have it for next meeting. That's all we're all saying.
Okay, and do you remember that at the last meeting, I had made very clear that we wanted the use of force statistics by pod. I even sent out a reminder email because I know the holidays had happened and I did not get them.
The email was sent. Maybe you didn't have a chance to get it. Maybe it was sent out later than you would have liked. The information was sent.
No, just like the agenda cannot be sent at 10 a.m. the day of the meeting, that information also can't if we're going to be discussing it and deliberating it.
That's true. We should all have it earlier.
Yes.
There's no doubt. We should
Actually,
not be getting stuff later. And that's also something that we have that we need to discuss in our operating procedures that we all want to put into place, which will provide for so many days in advance that we have all of this. So that's what we're all working towards.
Correct. But yet, month after month after month, it still doesn't change. I'm not just talking about a this should happen. I'm talking about us breaking the law.
Did you provide us with any of the changes that you had on those procedures?
No.
None of us did because
you said we were having an executive
terrible.
session meeting about it.
We were supposed to all provide them in advance.
Everyone's busy.
So
and
we
no
can
one-
talk about them.
Exactly. Can you ask another question, please?
What do you want me to ask a question about?
I don't, if you don't have one. Does anyone else have
Well, I don't have a question. I'd just like to make a quick comment. I've been sort of thinking in my head about the school visit, and I guess what I'm concerned about is issues of confidentiality for the juvenile who was interviewed. Or, I mean, I talk to juveniles, but I know I'm not going to share any information. So I'm just putting that out as a concern that I have about these visits. Thank you.
Deputy Beeson, Chief Deputy Beeson, excuse me.
Thank you, Your Honor. So under staffing, since the last meeting, we've had no recent promotions under jail operations. Currently, we have 4 cadets in the academy who are scheduled to graduate on February 3rd. There are physical agility tests coming up on January 10th, 12th, 14th, 17th, and 19th. This is for the cadet class scheduled to begin in late February. Currently, we have 48 individuals signed up to participate. I'm happy to report that the suicide-resistant cell project is complete, okay? State transfers. Currently, we have 16 males, 1 females with 300 Bs in the facility, 4 males with detainers, 4 males with open cases. The longest wait time on the 300 Bs right now was received on December 16th, and the shortest wait time was received yesterday, January 4th. And we have 4 scheduled transport dates this month, January. Those numbers don't include anything that came down from court actions today, obviously, okay? Use of force numbers from November 2022 were 24. I'm going to pass it on to Deputy Warden Toma to continue the deputy report.
So as it was mentioned at the last meeting, we are working to separate the policy that previously was the mail policy that also incorporated in the books. We are separating that out to have a governing document to oversee the literature review or to be named policy document that will govern how the books are reviewed upon receipt through the mail, but also govern our curation of the physical or the digital library that we have. So that is still in draft form. We did meet with DIT in regards to a procedure so that we can accept electronic receipts, so that we can facilitate receiving those books that at the time of delivery they don't come with receipts, but that we can still get those so that that can be passed along. To date, there are still no books that have been presented to the committee for review for content. And we are continuing to add books to the e-library based on the book request workflow that was put on the tablets. We did do a delivery yesterday on Wednesday of books that were requested through the book requests of specific genres to the pods. Oh, and I already reported on the food contract.
So for updates with COVID-19, currently there are 5 incarcerated individuals presently positive in the facility. None are hospitalized due to COVID-19. The total amount of incarcerated individuals tested for COVID during December was 1,287. Of those, 21, or 2.48%, were found to be positive. As of January 1st, throughout the pandemic, we have had 332 staff report positive results. Of our vaccinated incarcerated individuals, currently 579 have received the full series, which is 41.5%. For medications for opioid use disorder and expansion of those efforts, during the month of December, there were 13 prescribed naltrexone, with 1 receiving the Vivitrol injection prior to their community release, 99 individuals treated with Suboxone, and 6 treated with Sublocade. Of those, 7 patients transitioned from Suboxone to Sublocade. And for methadone continuation services, we've treated 15 individuals in December, currently having 16. Related to Torrance commitments, during December, we had 4 admitted and transferred to Torrance State Hospital, 5 committed to Torrance State Hospital, none had their commitment rescinded, and currently 23 are awaiting admission, with the longest since October 7th. In December, we had 5 individuals identified as Tier 5, 23 unique ones were identified as Tier 4. And for our non-emergency healthcare appointments, the sick call requests for medical have, as of today, we had 40 with the longest waiting 4 days. For sick call for mental health, we had 2 with the longest waiting 1 day. I already mentioned the psychiatrist, 76 waiting 11, and mental health specialists, 7 waiting 2 days. For the rest of my report, I wanted to do a bit of a review for 2022 for healthcare services. When I reflected on the year, the entire focus of our department was improvement. We took concerns shared by staff, the public, Jail Oversight Board, as opportunities to grow, and we have many goals, all which present opportunities. So that said, I'd like to summarize our progress toward the growth, and not that we have accomplished all of the goals, only that we are closer than we ever have been before. So for areas of success that we've had, medication-assisted treatment services for those impacted by substance use disorders has greatly expanded throughout 2022. Our MAT services saw the expansion of methadone services from previously only treating pregnant females, to now any person presenting to ACJ currently on methadone services. So for the year, we have treated over 750 patients on a form of medication-assisted treatment, which would support their journey for recovery, as well as overall fatality, overdoses, post-incarceration. Our suicide prevention mitigation in response to the 2019 visit that we had from NCCHC Resource Incorporated their previous suicide prevention program assessment, we were able to complete over 85% of the recommendations prior to their visit. And initial feedback from just anecdotal, not necessarily from the report, were that they were commending us as the first institution to reinvite them for a reassessment of those mitigation and efforts and recommendations that they've made. The improvement in this area, I feel personal pride for our facility to have accomplished this. Having done so has allowed our facility to build upon the momentum and continue that success and turn energies into supportive services now that we have made so many improvements with suicide prevention. Areas of improvement, our quality improvement measures have been able to improve overall with the stabilization of staffing and expansion of the staff infrastructure. Additional focus has been allowed to be placed on quality improvement measures. This allowed for QI activities to be more routinely applied with a proactive approach to process improvement. QI activities assisted in identifying workflow barriers and their connection to staff workloads and retention, as well as clinical outcomes. Taking these conclusions, the healthcare team's corrective action plans included many ways to address concerns, one of which was the pilot that I've previously talked about for interdisciplinary teams presented, where we've expanded that pilot program since August. Our interdisciplinary collaboration has seen a variety of efforts culminate in supporting a lot of different tasks in 2022. The pilot, like I mentioned, expanded. While it still continues to expand to allow for more ancillary services, we've had incredible input about patient wait times and staff retention. Effects of this have led to immediately observed, I just said that. Collaboration with other ACJ departments led to improved care. For example, collaboration with reintegrative services has led to reduced waits processing alternative housing admissions. Collaboration with the education department has facilitated the return to Alcoholics Anonymous, like I mentioned earlier. Other areas of concern and the responses that we've had throughout the year. For staffing, we've seen root issues related to ACJ healthcare staffing, including national shortages for healthcare professionals, specifically nurses, psychiatrists, therapists. Our orientation of new staff with a reduced veteran team, retention rates due to a variety of issues. Throughout 2022, the ACJ Healthcare has hired 85 professionals in a variety of capacities, ranging from contractors to permanent employees. Of those, we have had contracts ended or staff resigned for 12, 31 left for other reasons. I found data reporting that the National Healthcare Retention and Staff report indicated a retention nationally of 74% in 2021. So for 2022, healthcare's retention rate was 75% for county employees. While our permanent employee vacancies, as you have seen throughout the year, increasing in our monthly report, what has also increased is the supplemented staff through agency contracts. So that has allowed for the improved workloads for staff across almost all job classifications. While our team has also observed anecdotal statements indicating the morale is higher than at the start of 2022, and we know we have room to grow, it is difficult to objectively measure what that would look like. One formal way that we've been able to see improvements is a severe reduction in employee grievances, reducing more than half. With the addition of town hall meetings that we're having with our staff and other team building activities, we continue that focus into 23 for retention. And then finally, healthcare wait times, I've already talked a little bit about. A variety of questions have arisen regarding those wait times. There are multiple access to care points in our health system. Generally speaking, we have emergent, urgent, and non-emergent responses based on clinical triaging. All direct contact ACJ employees are required to be trained in basic life support and mental health first aid to be able to identify health emergencies. Medical emergencies are called for our team to respond, to which our healthcare team responds in under 4 minutes consistently. At that time, we can triage into urgent issues can be identified by any contractor or staff, all of whom are trained to contact the healthcare team. At that time, we can triage and determine what needs exist for the patient. The remainder of our services are delivered on a non-emergency basis. This may include follow-up, specialty consultation, typical primary care visits, and discharge coordination. Of the non-emergent appointment types that I've reported out over the year, our wait times that averaged about 45 days at the start of the year have now decreased down to 4.5 days at this time, on an average, with the longest wait time throughout the year having been 120 days, but down to an average of 4.5 days today.
Any questions? Ms. Klein?
I just have a comment. I just really want to commend you on your MAT program. I just think it's phenomenal how you've expanded it, and just thank you, because I really think that's such an important service.
Thank you. I'm proud of the team.
Any other questions? Ms. Howell? Do you have any more questions? Now's the time.
Yeah, are there any other presentations? Is that the end? I'm just wondering when we're going to get the update about the guard who was caught bringing contraband into the jail. I know that we got an email at literally the same minute that it was put out to the news. I'm wondering if you can, go over what happened there and also let us know how many days before it was reported to us you all knew that an officer had been bringing contraband into the jail.
Ms. Howland, we don't discuss personnel issues.
It was on the news.
Ms. Howland, we don't discuss personnel issues.
It was on the news. You can't repeat what was on the news to make sure that everybody up here knows about it?
Again, Ms. Howland, we don't discuss personnel issues.
Okay, so can you tell me why the jail knew for almost 2 weeks prior to it being announced and an arrest being made that an officer had been bringing contraband into the jail? Why did you not let us know before it was released to the press? I'm not asking for any personnel answers. I'm asking why we were not being made aware of such a serious issue until much after the fact. Because I heard about it, it wasn't 2 weeks, 10 days before it was actually reported.
Man, we don't report about investigations. We will not report about investigations that's being conducted by the police.
An officer was caught with contraband, and you did not tell us, correct?
If it's an ongoing investigation and they're in the process of investigating it to make an arrest and to pursue some type of legal action, what would be the benefit or the upside of informing people outside of that circle regarding that behavior?
We are in that circle by statute. We are in that circle, and we were not informed of an investigation.
Would that not jeopardize the investigation if
He was
that
caught.
information was released?
I don't know. I'm not a cop. I have no idea. What I'm asking is why we were not in the loop that an officer was caught with contraband.
Right. And he gave you his answer, yeah?
No, he said he will not discuss it.
Right. That's his answer. Do you have another
And you're cool with that?
Do you have another question?
No, it's wild to me that nobody has brought it up this entire meeting, but I got to read about it on the news.
Another question?
I just said I don't have another question.
Oh, so you're done? Any additional questions from anyone? All right. With that being said, thank you.
No, we did not do old business because we skipped out of order. We did not do old business.
With that being done, thank you for your presentations. We'll now move on to, pardon me? Did you just call me a prick?
Yes, I called you a prick. It's like the least, the nicest word I could say right now, the way you talk to me.
Okay, fair enough. Hope everyone heard that. So now we'll go to old business. Judge Lazare, I'll leave that to you.
All right, so the liaison position, which we are hoping solves.
I was going to say, is your mic on?
Sorry, I didn't turn it on. I apologize. And my voice has been gone for a month, and it's not coming back, apparently, despite the antibiotics that aren't working. So the liaison position, which we are hoping will resolve some informational issues for this board and provide us with a really great snapshot. We received over 50 resumes, as I told you guys last time. The members of the Incarcerated Individuals Welfare Fund has vetted those resumes, and each one of us had the opportunity to provide our top 5 to me, and then I calculated a top 5 that everybody had. It was really a remarkably great group. So we have 5 people that we would like to get interviewed. We are hoping to do that in the middle of January. I've asked for dates for those interviews and have 2 people that have responded for the dates for the interviews. And so we are going to get those interviews scheduled and get those people interviewed and hopefully be able to make a recommendation for hiring to the board. So really, really exciting about that. The second thing is I always provide to everyone the population information for the jail. This is the status of the jail population as of 4:30 p.m. on January 4th of 2023. At that time, there were 1,327 people in the Allegheny County Jail and 153 people in alternative housing facilities. That does not include people with holds by the federal government. 6% of the people in the jail itself were serving a county sentence as the result of a new conviction. That's 80 people. 26% of people in alternative housing, that is 40 people, are serving a county sentence. 19% of people, that's 258 people in the jail, had a hold from an external jurisdiction, including other counties or the state. 44% of people, that's 585 people, were in the jail, were detained by Allegheny County probation. These individuals are detained for violating probation on a crime for which they had previously been convicted. Of those 585 people, 88% or 515 were of moderate or high risk to reoffend based on their probation proxy risk score. 24% of people in alternative housing, that is 36 of the 153, were detained by Allegheny County probation. And of those 36, 29, that's 81%, were of moderate or high risk of reoffending based on their proxy scores. 25% or 329 people in the jail itself were held pretrial only, meaning that they had no other reasons such as external holds or detainers keeping them in the jail. Of these people, just over 2% screened as low risk for reoffense based on the Allegheny County pretrial risk instrument, which is locally validated. 19%, that is 29 of 153 people, in alternative housing were held pretrial only. Only one of those people screened as low risk for reoffense. 74 individuals, approximately 6% of the jail population, are currently being held in the Allegheny County Jail pretrial only on monetary bonds. Of these individuals, only 10 screened as low risk for new criminal activity, and all of these individuals were facing violent charges. Only 2 of 153 people in alternative housing are held pretrial only on non-monetary bonds, and neither screened as low risk for new criminal activity, and each was facing a violent charge. All pretrial monetary bond cases are reviewed for possible bond modification. Again, this shows a reduction from March 16th before the pandemic 2020. There were 2,075 people in the jail, including 1,859 inmates in the jail itself and 216 in alternative housing. So there has been a 29% decrease in the jail population since that pre-pandemic mark, and there was a 29% decrease also in the alternative housing population from that 2020 mark. In terms of detainer population from pre-pandemic, again, March 16th till Monday was January 4th? Monday, was that Monday? Sorry, it's Tuesday. Sorry, Tuesday. Monday was a holiday, right? It was a court holiday. Sorry about that. So between March 16th of 2020 and Tuesday, there was a 34% decrease in the detainer population in the jail. So those are our current numbers, and I gave you a copy because I remembered those. I do have to tell you that I may have some issues getting these numbers for February, March, and April. We're trying to work on that not being a problem, but I wanted to warn you in advance. The person who prepares these for me is expecting a baby and is supposed to go out on paternity leave at the very beginning of February. He and I have already had a conversation. He's going to try to make sure he can have somebody else in his department run those and get those to me. So I will try very hard to remember to ask him before he leaves at the beginning of the month to make sure that I have the contact person to get those from, okay? But just to give you a warning that in case that doesn't go smoothly, which, birth never does, I may have a problem providing them for the next meeting, but I'm going to try real hard to make sure that happens.
Any questions?
In fact, I have a to-do list. I'll put that on my to-do list.
Any questions?
Motion to adjourn.
No, there's another old business, the book subcommittee.
Before I leave, I want to thank the judge. That was actually what I'm waiting to hear. What you said, so I assume
So it was on the agenda.
we scheduled your report a little before we have a question and answer report.
I appreciate that. I would like it to be earlier also, but that's a chair decision. He has to decide what the order of business is. And so I think it would be helpful to have some of that business discussed at an earlier time.
It's very interesting and really relates. We can get some idea of what's going on.
Okay.
So that report, which is why everybody was asking to have somebody do that report. So
Okay.
now that we have that answer, we ought to get it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And everyone stay well.
You too. Thank you.
So I wanted to give an update from old business from our book subcommittee that we held a meeting for. So the meeting was me, Ms. Moss, Ms. Klein, and Controller O'Connor. So this is a newly formed committee that we are doing to try to address the issues with books in the jail. So in this first meeting, we had the folks that I mentioned. Judge Lazara unfortunately wasn't able to attend, but we're filling her in on it. And then we also had Jody Lincoln from the Pittsburgh Prison Book Project, Arlen Hess from the owner of City Books, and Sarah Shotland from Words Without Walls. And so a lot of information was discussed. I think Ms. Moss is going to present a motion after the discussion, but I just wanted to lead up to how we got there. So we had talked about what the book access had looked like prior to COVID, which was when it seems a lot changed. We had talked about the various ones of us who had seen the book carts on the pods where the books were old, outdated, raggedy, missing pages. We talked about what we saw as our goals for the book subcommittee. This was really the first meeting, and so we really wanted to identify our goals, questions that we wanted to ask. Our goal for the short term is to get the books that the jail already has accessible to the people into the jail. And then for the long term, to make sure that there is a permanent library at the jail that has a robust catalog, that is funded adequately, ideally has staff that are paid to monitor it and to distribute the books, and for the ability for incarcerated individuals to access books as they please. We also talked a lot about books, not just inside the jail and the library, but also being sent in from outside. I know the administration has discussed that they are working on this, but so are we, and hopefully we can get some solutions soon. But we talked about current jail policies that already exist that need to be followed, such as notifying the sender and recipient when a book is rejected, and also ensuring that there is an appeals process to that can be followed. We talked about potential policy changes, not saying necessarily that these were ones that we all agreed on, just ones that we all brought up collectively. Some of the folks who joined us had talked about hardback books, and that many other jails and prisons across the country allow hardback books, that the concern with hardbacks was not as much about the hardback of the book, but about the binding of the book. We talked about needing more clarity and revisions to content restrictions, clarifications around content content restriction, what is the content that is restricted, and why. We talked about expanding the number of vendors that are allowed to send in books. The standard in corrections is generally publishers and bookstores. And we talked about if that is too broad of a standard for the Allegheny County Jail to follow, that we could potentially create a process and an application for local bookstores to become approved vendors. We would like the Jail Oversight Board to be part of that approval process, and especially supporting local bookstores to be allowed to provide books into the jail. We also talked about the ebook platform, and that we were looking for more information on how the book platform works and how people inside feel about ebooks versus paper books. Were shared with us by our consultants a link about the best practices for ebooks in carceral institutions. We have a few questions, which now I will submit in writing to the administration and get an answer next meeting. But our specific questions were, where are those 20,000 books? How many are ebooks? How many are physical books? Who is in charge of the books? We had talked with folks who dealt with books, again, prior to COVID, that said there was never even before a very clear lineage of who is the keeper of the books, and so we wanted to know who that person is. Additionally, who is the keeper of the book carts? How often are the book carts updated? How often are new books cycled through? Is the keeper of the book carts trained? What type of training do they receive? Is this in somebody's job description? How people request physical books that they want from the inventory that the ACJ has? Is there any line item in the jail's budget for library services or books? We want to see a copy of the rejection slip for books sent in, a copy of the appeal form for books sent in, and really we agreed that we just want more detail on what is the book review committee that we've heard reference. And I believe if Ms. Moss has a motion she wants to introduce about the jail's book review committee.
Well, according to the protocol, I just found out we're supposed to have our motion in 2 days prior to the meeting. So I'm going to forego it, and I will go according to the rules that we will have a motion next month.
Okay.
And in that time, we should have some more information because we'll have another meeting before our next meeting.
Sure. I have no problem introducing the motion then. The motion was for Ms. Moss as a member of the book subcommittee to be included on the book review committee, so that the Jail Oversight Board has a person on the book review committee, and Ms. Moss has volunteered to be that person from the subcommittee who would be that representative.
There's a process for submitting motions. We all agreed as a board to the process.
When?
And we did. That's why you submit yours in writing 2 days before the meeting. Anything else?
You just said I didn't do that.
Is there anything else?
I'm not arguing with you anymore. It's 6 o'clock.
Anything else? Sheriff?
Motion to adjourn.
That's what I was doing. Guys, you just let him leave you. You know there's no bylaws because we're discussing bylaws with that.
Well, they told me to